The Chairperson Select Committee on the National Government Constituencies Development Fund will move a motion The following bills have also been lined up for debate in the second reading. The bills include the Kenya Roads Amendment Bill, National Amendment Bill, number 13 of 2021, the Central Bank of Kenya Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2021, the Radiographers Bill, National Assembly Bill number 47 of 2019, the National Cohesion and Peace Building Bill, Senate Bill number 35 of 2018, and the Trustees Perpetual Succession Amendment Bill, National Amendment Bill number 23 of 2021. Also this afternoon, the following members will ask questions pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42A, subsection 5. The nominated member, Honorable Gideon Keter, MP, to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Culture and Heritage, could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether there are any plans to rehabilitate the Kenya National Archives, which is in a dilapidated state, considering its importance as a hub and gallery of most of the artifacts in the country? Could the Secretary further explain why most artifacts have been removed from archives despite being protected by the 1954 Cultural Property Convention, which does not allow any movement of artifacts without authorization of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO? Could the Cabinet Secretary name the person holding the position of Acting Director of the Kenya National Archives and indicate when he or she was appointed, and explain when the substantive director will be appointed as provided for by the Public Archives and Documentation Services Act, Cap 19, given that the Public National Archives has operated without a director for the last 10 years. This question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Sports, Culture and Tourism. The member for Kwale County, Honorable Zeika Hassan, MP, to ask the Cabinet Secretary of Health, could the Speaker, Cabinet Secretary, provide the implementation status of the National Coroner's Service Act 2017 and outline the gains made so far with regards to its operation? Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the reasons for delay in the full authorization of the Act? This question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Health. Also, the member for Ainkoli MP, William Chepkut, to ask the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the implementation status of the TOT Kalua Irrigation Scheme at the border of Baringo and Elgeyo Marakwet counties, whose cost is estimated to be 245 million? Also, could the Cabinet Secretary outline measures, if any, that the ministry has put in place to ensure the project does not stall any further and that its completion is fast-tracked? This question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Among the questions, the member for Kathiani, Honorable Robert Mbui, to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works will ask the following question. When will the ongoing upgrade to bitumen standards of the Mumbuni-Kathiani Road in Kathiani constituency be completed? Considering that the completed sections of the road have already started developing potholes, could the Cabinet Secretary undertake to ensure that the road is constructed to the set standards? This question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Justin Muturi, is making his way into the chamber just to begin the proceedings of the day. My name is Doris Nkatha. Enjoy your viewing and have a good afternoon.
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in wisdom and goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with abundant favor, ask your servants whom you've been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country, and of those whose interests you committed to our church. Amen. Start.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honourable members, I have two petitions brought under standing orders 225, subsection 2, paragraph B, and have been assessed pursuant to the provisions of Article 119 of the Constitution. And therefore, in this regard, we should report the House that my office received a petition signed by Mr. Taratisio Ireri Kawe of ID number 8600483. The petitioner is concerned that the country's food production is heavily reliant on rainfall patterns, which have become quite unreliable in the recent past. Given the circumstances, the petitioner observes that food security is not sustainable unless immediate action is taken to protect the environment and conserve water. The petitioner is appalled that most citizens have drifted into abject poverty due to lack of an enabling environment that ensures sustainable agricultural production and to reduce uncompetitive importation of farm produce from neighboring countries. Honourable members, the petitioner notes that the majority of poor Kenyans for the construction of ponds and for harvesting rainwater to ensure sustainable irrigation systems and to reduce reliance on the seasonal rains. He therefore proposes complete zero rating of taxes on water tanks, farming equipment, and tools. The petitioner is cognizant of the fact that although it may seem that the government may lose revenue due to the gap created by the failure to tax the equipment and machinery, the government is bound to benefit from more taxes collected through agribusiness. Honourable members, the petitioner therefore prays that the National Assembly amends all relevant laws and reviews relevant regulations with a view to encouraging the majority of Kenyans to harvest rainwater. Having determined that the matters raised by the petitioner are well within the authority of this House, I order that, pursuant to the provision standing under 227(1), this petition be committed to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. A committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and the petitioner in accordance with standing order 227, subsection 2. I thank you. Honourable members, there is yet another petition, being number 38 of 2021, on payment of pending bills owed to suppliers of the National Youth Service, in bracket NYS, for the period 2013 to 2018. Honourable members, I wish to report that my office has received a petition from persons identifying themselves as suppliers and contractors who are engaged by the National Youth Service, NYS, to supply goods and offer various services during the period 2013 to 2018. Honourable members, the petitioners contend that during the period in question, the NYS initiated various projects and programs, including the rebranding of the agency, slum upgrading projects, as well as youth and women empowerment programs across the country. They further submit that in line with the terms of engagement, they delivered on their contractual obligations to the satisfaction of the agency and were thereafter entitled to payment for the goods and all services rendered. However, due to financial irregularities that were discovered within the NYS around the year 2015, all payments were suspended, and a multi-agency verification committee was later joined by the Secretary for National Treasury to verify all pending bills and claims against the NYS. Honourable members state that the multi-agency verification committee presented its report and recommended the payment of the genuine and verified and contractors. However, the petitioners observed that the payments are yet to be made despite a presidential directive for all public entities to clear all verified pending bills owed to suppliers and contractors. Consequently, the petitioners now seek the intervention of the House to cause the concerned parties to process the verified payments to the suppliers to avert further suffering, as some are servicing loans and other credit facilities. Honourable members, the petitioners have indicated that efforts to have the matter addressed by the relevant bodies have been unsuccessful. It's for that reason that They now seek the assistance of the National Assembly as a matter well within its authority. Now, members, pursuant to provisions on the Order 227.1, the petition stands committed to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, and the committee is requested to consider the House and report its findings to the House and to the issues herein and whatever recommendations it makes. And may I implore the committee to ensure that it addresses the fact that it is possible there were genuine suppliers even before the financial improprieties at the NYS were unearthed and who have not been paid to date. I thank you, no members. On the same, standing on the same order, the Honorable Sarah Correre, Paulata.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Crimon community in Samburu and Laikipia counties, draw the attention of the House to the following. 1, that the Crimon community land spans a total of 55,000 acres along the Wasonyiro River and has been a core part of Samburu community, which has used it as grazing land since time immemorial. That in 1923, the ownership of the land was forcefully taken away from the Samburu community by the British colonial government and handed to a white settler known as Major Y, who later transferred its ownership to a white settler company known as Almo Company, which brought numerous white settlers into the land. That after independence, the post-colonial government of Kenya took control of the land, registered it as LR number 8036, and placed it under the now defunct Livestock Marketing Division for rearing of steers and other breeds of cattle, after which they were ferried by train through Nakuru to the Kenya Meat Commission at the river on the outskirts of Nairobi. That majority of displaced members of the Samburu community were compelled to live in Parkare Arpa area of Crimon sublocation of Sosian Ward in Laikipia North constituency and settled along the Wasonyiro River by the white settlers in a bid to prevent them from accessing the occupied lands, while other communities settled around Kirimon Water Springs. That some members of Kirimon community were engaged by Livestock Marketing Division as casual laborers and herders and condemned to live as squatters in a land that historically belonged to them, and which is currently being used by the National Youth Service for low-scale livestock farming. That despite the injustice meted out on them, the Kirimon community has grown exponentially to over 3,000 residents whose children are served by 3 schools, and this growth has led to scarcity of land, water, and other key livelihood resources for members of the community. That the government of Kenya recently issued a notice ordering the bona fide residents to vacate their ancestral land, thereby creating unwarranted tension in the area, which poses the risk of disrupting learning and is a sure recipe for chaos and conflict. That efforts to address this gross injustice by both the British colonial government and the post-colonial government of Kenya authorities have not yielded any fruit. And that the issue in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court of law or any other constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee of Lands, 1, intervenes to facilitate restoration of at least 75% of the irregularly occupied land back to the members of the Kirimon community. Secondly, recommend the urgent suspension of the vacation notice pending stakeholder consultations and make any further orders deemed fit in the circumstances of the petition, and your petitioners will ever pray. Thank you, Speaker.
Comments on the 3 petitions. Member from where?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to comment on the first and second petitions. On the first, it is true, Honorable Speaker, that this country cannot rely on rainfall for its food production any longer, and we would encourage the government to continue with the program that is currently undertaking on doing water ponds to harvest water, and also to complete the irrigation schemes that are already going on. I have one in Mwea, the Thiva Dam, and I really want to really once again thank the government. It's on time, 65% done. We hope by December it will be complete, and encourage that they do many more so that this country can be food secure in future, Honorable Speaker. On the second petition, I noticed that it has been directed to the Committee on Planning. Honorable Speaker, NYS falls under our oversight, that is the Committee on Labor, and I would urge the Committee on Finance to consult us as they process it, because we have much more information on the same, so that we can have our input as they make their final report. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Sangok.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. And I will only comment on the first petition, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we are sure that this country cannot longer rely on rain to produce enough food. And one of the big four agenda of the President is food security, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when we were students in the University of Nairobi, when we were student leaders, we came up with a way and a proposal that we advised the then government of the late President Moi to irrigate the whole country using the water in Mount Kenya, Mount Kilimanjaro, and Mount Elgon by piping along all government roads, which stand at around 300,000 kilometers. Honorable Speaker, piping will only require less than 50 billion. With labor, it will go to around 80 billion. Honorable Speaker, and water will be flowing instead of to Indian Ocean, it will be flowing to our farms, and we'll have enough food. Honorable Speaker, I am currently collecting signatures for the same so that we can petition the Budget Committee to set aside almost 89 billion for us to be able to irrigate this country. Honorable Speaker, so the petition is good, and if then it does not apply in this regime, this government, Honorable Speaker, since you are one of the front runners in the coming election in 2022, in fact, you are only two. It is either you to become the 5th president or William Ruto. So if you, in the event that you become the president, I advise you, Honorable Speaker, please, I plead with you that listen to our proposal of irrigating the whole country using the water in Mount Kenya, Mount Kilimanjaro, and Aberdare ranges, because under gravity, it will flow to all our farms, because those are more than 2,000 meters above sea level. Yet our lowlands stand at 100 meters above sea level, and they are very fertile, 80% of the land mass. So, Honorable Speaker, I support the petition.
Honorable Dawood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to comment on the first and the second one. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Irrigation has rightly put it that the farm implements should be zero rated. But not just that, Mr. Speaker, we should even see how we are going to improve on the agrarian economy, because that's the way to go for this country, and we should be able to be food sufficient in the next 15 to 20 years. Mr. Speaker, regarding the second petition, I remember the CS Finance, when he was here giving the budget speech, that all pending bills should be before the end of last financial year. But Mr. Speaker, the counties as well have not cleared, they've got bills as well, and the national government as well, and as well as even our CDF, for that matter, is not cleared. So I wonder if we as MPs cannot get our CDF, how are the other people supposed to get the money? So, Mr. Speaker, I want to join both the petitions. Thank you.
Honorable Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to comment on the first petition, which is relating to the issue of food security. Honorable Speaker, I do agree with the petitioner. I would just want to urge the committee, even as I consider this matter, Honorable Speaker, to note that rain for agriculture will not take us far. Actually, what we need is irrigated agriculture, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have in mind, for example, in our region, Ukambani region, we have very two big rivers, Tana River and Earth River, which are flowing all the way to the ocean, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, at one point I had a chance to work in Sudan, not the southern Sudan, but the Sudan, the upper one now. Honorable Speaker, you realize the government of Sudan at that time had actually done a canal of about 1,000 kilometers branching from River Nile, interior. And that's where they grow their sugar and all those many other things. Honorable Speaker, I think really, as a country, we just need to get our act together. And Honorable Speaker, you know, anytime I hear other petitions, Honorable Speaker, like now, yesterday and the day before yesterday, there were 2 petitions, which were proposing disgorgement of potential land for irrigation, Honorable Speaker. So this is the kind of balance we want to get as a country. Because those people who planned this country in terms of agricultural land, livestock land, they did an excellent job. But over time, Honorable Speaker, now, we end up messing the planning. And I think really if we stick to the original planning, we'll be able to secure our people in terms of food security. On the second one, on the issue of debt, Honorable Speaker, I do sit in the Budget Committee, Honorable Speaker, and I want to confirm to this House, as part of the budget they passed, Honorable Speaker, there are quite a lot of resources for paying debts, pending debts. How I wish that we could just pursue the implementation. That because the money we already set aside the resources, that the implementation committee of this House and other relevant committees just push hard the departments to pay. Because if they pay, there will be no issue, Honorable Speaker. But the problem is they ask for resources before sorting out which debts are eligible and which are eligible. So they start now the process of sorting them out when the money is in their account. And that delays the process. So how I wish that they could sort the debts first, so that by the time we allow resources to be appropriated by the House, that is just a matter of paying. We will sort the matter. So with those remarks, Honorable Speaker, I want to support the petitioners. Thank you very much.
Member for Tharaka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, allow me to comment on the 3 petitions. The first one being the fact that the country seems to be overly relying on rain-fed agriculture, as a result of which we are not able to produce enough food. It isn't pleasant to watch over the TV last night that the country is appealing for food because of drought. I think we should be moving away from this, and one way of doing it is to ensure that if farm implements are subject to high taxation, we have a waiver or reduction of those taxes so that we are able to produce more food for the country's consumption. As regards the second petition, it's vitally important that we do bury the ghosts of the NYS scandal, so that essentially, if there are valid suppliers who are supposed to be paid, we pay them and we bring the matter to a close. Let us also adhere to the presidential directive that all pending bills be paid so that the internal debt we have to the government is actually reduced or removed completely. As regards the third petition, this is a historical injustice meted out on our people by the colonizers when they were here to take over our land, milk it, and when they left, instead of us rectifying the problem, we went ahead to create even a bigger problem at the expense of our people. My plea would be, regarding the first petition, let the committee move with the speed and let them not say this is too complicated to amend the laws and regulations. We have all the time, we have a parliament that can do this. As regards the second one, let the committee move to recommend. We adhere to what the president has said. We pay the bills. Those of NYS and the others, we close these matters. And as regards the third one, kindly, historical injustices, including those in Tharaka, must now be addressed. This is an historical injustice. Thank you.
Member for Kiminini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to comment the 2 petitions. The first petition, Mr. Speaker, regarding the issue of harvesting water. Right now, Mr. Speaker, with climate change, you can't even predict when the rain will start, when the rain will stop. And it's the highest time, Mr. Speaker, as a government, to focus heavily when it comes to issues of rain harvesting. Mr. Speaker, the petitioner has specifically looked at the issue of the water tanks. And we call upon the committee in charge, Mr. Speaker, to do a delicate balance so that these tanks, Mr. Speaker, that are going to be used when it comes to water harvesting, they can either be zero-rated or maybe they should be given out to the farmers at a subsidized price, Mr. Speaker. And the petition also spoke about the issues of inputs. And when you talk of inputs, Mr. Speaker, we also look at the issues of fertilizer. If the government can also focus on giving out subsidized fertilizers, particularly to areas which they have arable land, this will play a critical role as far as food security in this country, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, on the issue of NYS, Mr. Speaker, the payables should be given. We have people, Mr. Speaker, who validly supply the goods, and if the multi-agency committee has done the verification, they should be paid with speed, Mr. Speaker, in line with the President's directive on the pending bills. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to comment on the 3 petitions. Let me start with the 3rd petition by our colleague from Samburu. The issue of historical land injustice was well addressed in the various reports, the Dung report, the Jonjo report, as well as the new constitution of 2010. Honorable Speaker, even the National Land Commission Act is expressly clear on the process of addressing the historical land injustice. I just pray and hope the petition is not time-barred because there's a time frame when to make those claims for historical land injustice. On the 2nd petition, Honorable Speaker, the issue of pending bills becoming an endemic problem in this country, despite the numerous pronunciations by the government or the president, and being highlighted in various audit reports, we don't seem as a country to be making any progress. The amount of suffering people of Kenya, the small traders are going through is intolerable and it's now starting to cause a social upheaval. And I would believe NYS having such a history, there must be a mechanism through which they can identify the genuine suppliers and the crooks that literally caused the mess in NHIF. Let the genuine ones be paid on time. On the 1st petition, Honorable Speaker, the issue of food security is now becoming a very big point of discussion in this country. Rains are routinely failing, they are delaying, and relying on rain-fed agriculture is not going to take us anywhere. Honorable Speaker, I highly doubt whether water tanks for rainwater harvesting will be of any use. Rain comes at a specific period, sometimes it doesn't come, and focusing on water tanks might not be a solution to food security safeguard in this country. The way to go is irrigation, irrigation, irrigation. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Samburu West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to comment on the 3rd petition by Honorable Sarah Korere. And Mr. Speaker, it is very important to note that if there is any community in this country that is suffering from historical injustices, Mr. Speaker, it is Samburu community, Mr. Speaker. I border Laikipia North, where the petitioners are from. Kirimon is also in Samburu West constituency, Mr. Speaker. And it is unfortunate that since the colonial time, the Samburus have continued to be displaced, and then once they're out, and it's very unfortunate even what is happening in Laikipia, Mr. Speaker, you'll find huge tracts of land owned by ranchers, Mr. Speaker, and they fence the entire place, Mr. Speaker. Then their leases come to an end. Then now our current government, whom we thought would even give us back our land, Mr. Speaker, we continue with the same atrocities being meted on this pastoralist, Mr. Speaker. And it is very unfortunate to see members of the government, Mr. Speaker, especially the security apparatus, Mr. Speaker, who just go and make blanket announcements to say that a certain community or the pastoralists should not be in a certain area, not knowing that there are members of that community, like the Samburus, who legally live in Laikipia County, Mr. Speaker. So I hope that the petition by Honorable Sarah will be taken seriously and that recommendations will be made. And it is very unfortunate that every electioneering period, we see people being given notices to leave their land. Mr. Speaker, this issue needs to be sorted once and for all, and people to be given back their land, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Musa Alois Ntoimaga, Samburu North.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to comment on two petitions, number 1 and 3. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of food security, there's a serious problem now as we speak in terms of provision of food. Mr. Speaker, because of shortage of food and because of the drought, our people are suffering. And in fact, the government has also discontinued supply of relief food to the local people who are in distress. So, Mr. Speaker, the way to go is dams, to construct big dams so that you can do irrigation. A lot of water is going to waste, that is rain water, that comes during the rainy season. Boreholes are not the best way to go. So mega dams can be constructed in areas, especially in northern Kenya, and we use that water in the mega dams to be able to do irrigation and also to use for domestic purposes. On the third petition, Mr. Speaker, just as my colleagues have said, we are really facing a lot of injustices as Samburus. Cows, when it's a drought like this one now, when we venture into Laikipia, our cows are being killed. Can you imagine? Just literally killing, shooting cows and shooting animals. The cows are innocent, and they are killed. The last time, they killed more than 3,000. This time around, the other day, they killed another 300. It's so uncouth. It's like we don't live in Kenya. We are not part of Kenya. So this particular land that Mheshimiwa Sarah Koreda has brought, we recommend that it is speedily registered under the local people who are the rightful owners. Thank you so much.
Member for Kiambu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to comment on the first petition and the second petition. It is very, very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, that at this time and age, Kenya is still not food sufficient. We have plenty of water, we have plenty of arable land, but we have been unable to plan on how to utilize them so that our country can be food secure. We need to think seriously about the way we are going to harvest water, not only rainwater, but even storage of river waters, how we can exploit our underground water so that we can be able to irrigate our farms and stop relying on rain to do our agriculture. And I believe that if we made proper use of our rivers, we would be self-sufficient as far as food is concerned. On the second petition, Mr. Speaker, genuine traders who were trading with NYS never got paid. But those who stole got their money and they went away. But those who did genuine business are suffering because of those who stole. So, and the president has said this time and again that pending bills must be paid. Now, NYS has continued to do other works. NYS has continued to pay fresh contractors, but they have forgotten to pay the pending bills. I think time has come when those traders must be paid. And when I talk this, Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking as the chairman of the Economy and Business Caucus of Parliament. And many, many people have complained about these pending bills. These suppliers have been affected a lot. Some of them are sick now because of the huge payments that have not been done. So, Mr. Speaker, the committee concerned should ensure that this matter comes to a close and these traders are paid. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Emuhaya.
Honorable Speaker, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll make a comment on the petition that concerns NYS, which our able chairman did make a comment on, that yes, we need to have the payments of all the pending bills, especially those that are accrued with NYS. Honorable Speaker, about 2017 thereabout, there was a serious mess within the NYS, and there were both genuine and then non-genuine contractors. But we have had a series of meetings, like the chair did put, with the CEO or the DG of NYS, and they have paid most of the people they were supposed to pay. But there was a multi-agency team that was put in place in order to actually sieve to know who should be paid and who should not be paid. So again, like he did indicate, before it goes to whatever committee that it has been taken to, it's very important that a consultation with Labour be done so that they are given a report on the progress of what was happening with these pending bills of NYS, because it was a whole world of a milli in terms of who were the genuine suppliers and who are not the genuine suppliers. Otherwise, we stand with all other genuine contractors who have not been paid their pending bills that they should be paid. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, on the petition by Honorable Sarah for Samburu, the land that was alienated, I would wish to indicate that much of the theories that state and actually count on land ownership is the first occupancy theory. And the first occupancy theory has sufficed the times that those who settle in a place first become the owners of that particular land. And the Samburus are just victims of the colonial land ordinances that began in 1902 and proceeded all the way to 1915 and so on and so forth. That is 18, but not 19. And therefore, they lost their land. But they are lucky. Honorable Sarah, your team is lucky because your land was taken to the public. There are those who lost their land and was privatized. It's a more difficult scenario where the land was privatized. So it's very important that public participation, like she did indicate, be invoked before the land is just taken off from the people, because the people will continuously demand for their land, because that land was theirs. And they only lost it courtesy of the colonization. And the new colonial masters must know that at one point in time, they'll have to surrender the land that they took after the original owners had lost their land. This has really affected most of the pastoralists in this country. With those few comments, I want to support the two petitions. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Kenagop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to support the first petition and the second one, and especially on the issue of zero rating the irrigation implements to make sure that our farmers, especially the small-scale farmers, are able to really do irrigation, because as you realize, only 10% of this republic depends on, depends on rainfall, and which is reliable for, only 10% would reliably produce goods depending on the rainfalls, because the patterns are predictable. But the rest, about 48%, which is arable land in this republic, something needs to be done. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, the petitioner has brought it right. If we've only be able to make sure that the irrigation equipment are available and subsidized in terms of taxes, so that they don't pay taxes, then that is the way to go. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of water that goes to waste, and just like we are contributing on this irrigation bill, the fact that there's a lot of water, then it is incumbent upon the government to just make sure that the 48% of land that is arable, they make sure that they do dams, and maybe because private sector is going to come in, have it easier for them to invest, because if we make implements available and cheaper, then that is the way to go. Then on the second one, Mr. Speaker, you realize that many times when there are scandals in this country and involving different government agencies and departments, there's a blanket condemnation of our business people who engage in good business or good business practices. And when payments are stopped, then it becomes a pain and causes a lot of stress to business people that are genuine. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to support that petition, so that then NYS or the government pays all the pending bills, because you can imagine 7 years down the line, 8 years down the line, someone has not been paid, and maybe they had taken loans. They've already lost maybe their properties, and nobody is coming into their rescue. Mr. Speaker, maybe this House should assert itself and even say that these pending bills should be paid, and be paid with interest. Mr. Speaker, finally, the issue of Public Finance Management Act and PPDA, that is Public Procurement Disposal Act. These are acts that needs to be enforced, so that then going forward we do not have these issues of pending bills, because money must be allocated, and before procurement is done, we must make sure that every procurement that is done in this country is done within the confines of these two acts. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support the two petitions, and wish that the Committee on Finance is going to expedite. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Nambale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to make a very brief comments on these three petitions. Let me start with the issue of the NYS. I think the issue of the NYS is a very good example of how financial governance really went wrong and is continuing to go wrong. What has happened clearly, that even though bills are verified, it puts power in the hands of the managers, who to give and who not to give to pay off the pending bill. When you aggregate this for the whole economy, we are having a lot of money stuck there that if released, it would be a major stimulus package for this economy. The type we are talking about budgeting new monies, and yet monies are being held that if released to the economy, it would make a huge difference. I think the issue, the petition is sound. I hope as a result of it, it will help us revisit these issues that have been ignored across the economy in respect of payment of pending bills. The issue on irrigation, Mr. Speaker, I think we should take the issue of food security seriously. Food is not just needed when people are starving. Food is needed to lower costs. If we lower costs, we shall effectively increase the income of workers, particularly urban workers. If food costs, which in the basket, when they measure inflation, may be about 40% or 50, in fact more than 50% now, are reduced, you have effectively given an increase to that household. So improving availability of moisture and rain and so on would help increase productivity, increase quantity, and lower average cost. And that's something that really must be taken extremely seriously. Areas like Busia, we have abandoned schemes that nobody cares about, we haven't even succeeded to get the question in Parliament answered after 2 years. Both Mheshimiwa Ounda and myself have been raising this. We are not taking these issues around food security as serious as we should. And lastly, the issue of historical rights. I think we should begin to confront problems as they are. I think that we have, and I think we know that rather, the elite that we have is no different from the colonial elite that we had in terms of hanging on to assets, not caring about the poor. So I really think that this petition by Honorable Sarah Korere, it is an extremely important one. It should raise all of the difficult issues that we like to avoid in relation to issues of historical injustices. And I think it's extremely important that we, when it comes before us, we put our minds to it, to enrich it enough, to enable government to feel that in fact, indeed, there is a real problem there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Ainabkoi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. These are very great issues, especially the historical injustices. Samburu and the entire Maasai are great people of this republic. They own the wealth of this nation. Nairobi is theirs. Major land are there. So we want issues of historical injustices be addressed once and for all. Mr. Speaker, since you are suitable and competent enough, irrigation is very key. I brought two issues, Mr. Speaker, and I want your attention. I brought the motion of compulsory planting of trees in low-earning institutions and individual households. Second was the climate change. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have given a notice to Governor of Uasin Gishu County that they should not take water from our own constituency, Kaptagat Towers, without my people having water distribution. That is, I'm giving them a warning. Secondly, it is a warning. My people must benefit before others. I give my people first priority, Mr. Speaker, sir. Secondly, I want government incentives, tax exemption by farm equipment. I want it is indeed with assurance of honor and profound respect to Cabinet Secretary Ambassador Kuriatane. He's a great man. He gave me last week tax exemption for great people like George Chile. And my constituency is the fruit basket of this republic. So we are very key. Uasin Gishu County is #1. So we must have government incentives. Food security is very key. That's why I always support His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the 5-star general. And if he will not do anything for me, I've been going by Air Force One. So tell him, because you are #3 in command, that I love him. As much as I love him, he's #1 in this republic, followed by Dr. William Ruto, our own son, and followed by you. So the thing, Mr. Speaker, is we vote in unity of interest, emotion, and desires. I beg to support Sarah. You are a great woman of this republic. Thank you.
Well, honour members, in the course of debate yesterday on some of the motions, I did indicate that members, I think many of you tend to forget your standing order so fast. The Honourable Chepkut concluded by congratulating somebody, and he faced behind to his back. This is the Honourable Sarah Korere. But even you referred to her as a great woman. But even as you are contributing, I watched the Honourable Sarah Korere walking away. She is not anywhere. People are commenting on her petition, and she has already left the chamber. Surely, you know, honourable members, sometimes it's not fair. The Honourable Sarah has brought a very, very important petition. Members are contributing, making comments, congratulating her, among other things, but she has already taken off. Anyhow, the petition is referred to the Committee on Lands to deal with, and the other two are referred to the Committee on Finance and Planning. The time for comments is over. I can see very, very many of you wanted to contribute, but to comment, but the time is over. I observe 30 minutes and it's over. So we go to the next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the Majority Party.
Honourable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House. Today, Thursday, August 19th, 2021, during the afternoon sitting. Number 1, the proposed budget ceilings for each constituency for the financial year 2021-2022 from the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Board. Number 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June 2019 and the certificates therein. Number A, Nzoia Sugar Company Limited. Number B, Kenya National Highways Authority. And C, Kenya Roads Board Fund. Number 3, the report of the Auditor General and financial statements of the Kenya European Union Partnership for the implementation of the national strategy to counter violent extremism in Kenya for the year ended 30th of June 2020 and the certificates therein. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Maybe because of the interest, and because, as you know, honourable members, if you can't do it yourselves here, you cannot do for others. So I wish to allow the chair or chairman, I don't think whether it is right to call a human being a chair. He is a chairman of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Select Committee of the National Assembly, the Honourable Atanas Misiko Wafula Wamunyinyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, What we're doing is in compliance with the provisions of the National Government Constitutional Development Fund Act. And as is required, Mr. Speaker, 2.5% of national government share of revenue as divided by the Annual Division of Revenue Act enacted pursuant to Article 218 of the Constitution. We have been given the proposed budget ceiling, which is as per the Division of Revenue Act 2021. The total shareable revenue is 1,625,624,173,860, out of which 1,398,798,856,427 is allocated to the national government. Now, in the year 2021-2022 financial year, a total of 41,714,800,000 was allocated to the NGCDF, which translates to 2.98%. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this means that the conditions set out in Section 4 of the Act have been complied with. Mr. Speaker, further, as Section 4.3 of the Act requires that the monies appropriated to the fund in any financial year shall not be less than that of the previous year as appropriated. The amount, therefore, for this year, Mr. Speaker, is 41,714,800,000 allocated. Mr. Speaker, the board shall, with the approval of the Committee of the National Assembly, allocate funds for every constituency in each financial year as provided in Section 34. And therefore, pursuant to these provisions, I hereby, Mr. Speaker, present the lists of all the 290 constituencies plus the amount for each constituency, Mr. Speaker, which is 137,088,879 shillings. Mr. Speaker, the reason why there was a delay in presenting this, we had, as a committee, been pushing for enhancement of this amount from within the funds allocated, to the extent that you see the board has been has taken about 5%, which is about 1.9 billion. So, Mr. Speaker, the committee had wanted to reduce this percentage to about 3 to 4%, so as to enhance the allocation to the constituencies. It will be a small amount by about 2 to 3 million per constituency. We did not agree to this proposal. We had hoped that we would get the PS at the Treasury together with the Department of Planning, with the board, to sit with us so that we can get this done, but this has not been possible. We have decided, for the sake of ensuring that members prepare the project proposals, so that we ask the Treasury to release money for the first quarter, as we pursue now the difference in what proposals that we are making. So that's where we are, Mr. Speaker, and I want to appeal to colleagues to, without delay, submit the project proposals, so that on our part we have already asked the board to ask the Treasury to release money for the first quarter, so that by December you have got money for bursary and you're going to implement your projects, Mr. Speaker. By December. Mr. Speaker, we also have constituencies that have not received the full allocation for this financial year. Yes, a few constituencies. Let me now clarify, Mr. Speaker, that the amount remaining for some constituencies is about 5 million, 10 million, 13 million, something like that. I think I can table the list a little later. But the point I was trying to say, Mr. Speaker, is that the arrears which we have ought to have been dealt with during the budgeting, at supplementary and main budget. We did not do that, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, even in our effort to get these percentages adjusted, we intended to cover up, to ensure that the constituencies recover as we move on from, the amounts that we have to get their funds enhanced at the constituency. So, Mr. Speaker, given time, we're going to pursue this, but also I want to ask members who are asking why to appreciate the fact that it is this House that, provided the budget, that did the appropriation, that gave funds, to be utilized. Mr. Speaker, and it is our own budget committee. Yes, I did, Mr. Speaker. It's a budget committee that decided, and you members approved. It's not just a budget committee. You members approved it. Now you are asking me why. When you approved it yourselves. So, Mr. Speaker, let us be serious and to look at our issues. You cannot question something you did yourself, Mr. Speaker. Even you, Mr. Speaker, you are here, you saw. You witnessed. You did not vote, they voted. So, Mr. Speaker, let members prepare the proposal so that we can get the funds for the first quarter flowing to the constituencies. But we're going to pursue the arrears together as a House to make sure that we get this, released to the constituencies for development. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. You.
The Chairman, Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, August 19, 2021, in the afternoon sitting. Report of the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperative on its consideration of sessional paper number 4 of 2020 on the National Cooperative Policy on promoting cooperatives for socio-economic transformation. Many thanks indeed, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Nzioka Kivasu, member from Mboni.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, August 19, 2021, afternoon sitting. Report of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation on its consideration of the Information Communication Technology Practitioners Bill, National Assembly Bill, number 38 of 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Ali Hadan Haj.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on its consideration of sessional paper number 4 of 2020 on the National Cooperative Policy laid on the table of the House on Thursday, August 19, 2021, and further approves sessional paper number 4 of 2020. Thank you, sir.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
First question, first segment, Roman 1. Nominated member Gideon Keter. Do you have a card? Press the intervention button.
I've been teaching them.
Or you don't? Yes, that way.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 44, 2C, I rise to request for statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding the recent killings of young men in Embu County, Kitengela, in Kajiado County, and other parts of the country. Honorable Speaker, it is a great concern and deeply regrettable that on the recent past, and in particular on August 2021, a number of killings have been recorded from the country. Benson Jiru, Emmanuel
nominated member.
Yes.
I know you are not often in the House, but you are listed as asking a question.
It's a statement. Question.
You have a question?
Yes,
on the National Archives?
Yes.
Yeah, that is a question. We are at the stage of questions.
Thank you for the... okay, I rise to ask question number 202 of 2021 to ask the CS Sports and Culture and Heritage that could the Cabinet Secretary explain whether there are any plans on to rehabilitate the Kenya National Archives, which is in dilapidated state, considering its importance as a hub and a gallery of most of the artifacts in the country. Could the Cabinet Secretary further explain why most artifacts has been removed from the archives despite being protected by the 1954 Culture Property Convention, which does not allow any movement of artifacts without authorization of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization? Also, could the Cabinet Secretary name the person holding the position of the acting director of the Kenya National Archives, indicate when he or she was appointed, and explain when the substantive director will be appointed as provided by the Public Archives and Documentation Act, Cap 19, given that the Public National Archives has operated without a director for the last 10 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Sports, Culture and Tourism. Next question by the member for Kwale County, the Honorable Suleika Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby rise to ask question 229/2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Health. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide the implementation status of the National Coroner's Service Act 2017 and outline the gains made so far with regard to its operationalization? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the reasons for delays in the full operationalization of the Act? Thank you.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Health. Next question by the member for Ainabkoi, Honorable Chepkut.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Permit me to, I rise to ask question number 316/2021. Could the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation, and Irrigation, 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the implementation status of the Tot Kalawa irrigation scheme at the border of Elgeyo Marakwet and Baringo counties, whose cost is estimated to be Kenya shilling 245 million? 2, and the last one, Could the Cabinet Secretary outline the measures, if any, that the ministry has put in place to ensure that the project does not stall any further, and that is the completion is fast-tracked? Thank you, Speaker, sir.
Question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. The next question is by the member for Kathiani, who has requested for its deferment. The request was acceded to. So we move to the next question by the member for Mogotio, the Honorable Daniel Toitoek.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question number 329 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary outline the extent of geothermal drilling activities in Kajiado, Narok, Nakuru, Baringo, Turkana, and Samburu counties? 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary list the names of companies which were awarded concession tenders to undertake geothermal drilling activities in these counties, in particular at Aru site, Mogotio constituency? 3. Could the Cabinet Secretary confirm if comprehensive public participation was carried out prior to settling on the companies to carry out the drilling activities, in particular for Mogotio constituency at Aru's geothermal site? And finally, Speaker, 4, could the Cabinet Secretary also give the status of the drilling activities by each of the contracted companies and the achievements made so far in drilling of geothermal wells in the above listed counties? Thank you, Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Next question by the member for Embakasi West, the Honorable Dauri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask a question to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. Could the Minister consider erecting barricades along Outer Ring Road in Nairobi City County, particularly between Taj Mahal Stage and Allsops, to prevent pedestrians from crossing below the footbridges located between the two locations, so as to forestall recurrence of multiple accidents which are being witnessed almost on a daily basis in the said areas? 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure comprehensive road safety campaigns are carried out to sensitize Kenyans on road safety and traffic rules, particularly in urban areas in the country? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing. The next question is by the member for Kibra, the Honorable Bernard Okoth. You don't know how to operate, yes, there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 335 of 2021, and the question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the criteria used in the allocation of infrastructural funds and other resources meant for school development to schools in the country? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary avail a list of all schools that benefited from the said funds during the financial years 2017-2018, 2018-2019, and 2019-2020 per constituency, and indicate the amount received by each institution? Number 3, could the Cabinet Secretary outline the steps that the ministry is taking to ensure that the funds are distributed equitably and transparently? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Next question is by the member for Kiambaa, the Honorable John Juguna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to ask question number 352 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain the measure that the ministry has put in place to curb alcohol, drug, and other substance abuse in the country, and in particular in Kiambaa constituency? Could the Cabinet Secretary further explain the high influx of non-Kenyan nationals in certain parts of Kiambaa constituency, particularly in Ruaka area, and indicate whether there is correlation between this influx and the increased cases of drug trafficking in the area? Could the Cabinet Secretary also explain the steps that the Ministry is taking to eradicate the menace of drug trafficking? Could the Cabinet Secretary provide statistics of foreign nationals residing in Kiambaa constituency? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Last question by the member for Malindi, the Honorable Aisha Jumwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask question 353 of 2021 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why high school management boards, both in public and private schools across the country, make it mandatory for parents and guardians to purchase schools items such as school uniforms and mattresses, among others, from their respective schools, which cost higher than prices at most independent outlets? 2, Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary consider issuing a directive to all schools in the country to stop compelling parents and guardians to purchase such items from schools, but only provide specifications? Could the Cabinet Secretary also explain why school principals continue to send students home due to remedial payment, which is not included fees structure against government's directive? Mr. Speaker, the last one, could the Cabinet Secretary indicate the actions taken against school principals across the country who have failed to comply with the directive of the government on reduction of fees, and that they should charge the approved school fees? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Go to the next segment. Request for statements. The first is by the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa.
Pursuant to the provision of Standing Order 44-2C, I raised request for statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding recent killings of young men in Embu County, Kitengela, in Kajiado County, and other parts of the country. Honorable Speaker, it is of great concern and deeply regrettable that on the recent past, and in particular on August 2021, a number of killings have been recorded across the country. Benson Jiru Ndwiga and Emmanuel Mutura Ndwiga lost their life in Embu, while Moses Kimathi Jiru lost his life in Manyata. Further, 4 young men, namely Fred Mureithi, aged 30, Victor Mwangi, a businessman, and aged 25, Mike George, aged 29, and Nicholas Musa, aged 28, who were murdered in Kitengela on 8th August 2021, and there are 3 motorbikes burnt along their identity cards. In Kiptagich location in Nakuru County, a Form 2 student by the name Emmanuel Koech Rono was shot dead by a police officer. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the following. What is the status of investigation into the killings of the said young men, namely Benson Jiru Ndwiga, Emmanuel Mutura Ndwiga, Moses Kimathi Njiru, Fred Mureithi, Victor Mwangi, Mike George, Nicholas Musa, Emmanuel Kipkoech Rono on the said places on different dates? Could the chairperson explain whether any of the government investigation agencies have managed to uncover the motives for the murders and whether any suspect has been apprehended and brought to book? Could the chairperson explain what measures the government has taken to inquire into the matter to ensure such incidences are handled with urgency and whether police officers have acquired safe de-escalation techniques to enable them diffuse situation, especially where suspects are not armed. Could the chairperson further explain how often the security personnel undertake refresher courses? Fourth, what measures is the ministry putting in place to ensure that affected families are duly compensated for the pain and suffering brought with loss of lives of their loved ones, and within which timeline will the family of the deceased be compensated? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, sometimes there are some things that you are supposed to take judicial notice of, especially when you know, for instance, that maybe action has already been taken, like where people have already been arrested and presented before courts. Come and ask the chairperson what the step, and you know the step. You know, if it was those days when ministers would be here, you would be embarrassed to ask something like that, because you would be asked whether you live in the country or somewhere else in outer space. Nevertheless, Honorable Mwadi, how soon do you think you can provide this? It's just like you are not, Honorable Member, you are not supposed also to ask about what the law says, because you are expected to know the law as a lawmaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you'll be able to bring the statement in the next 2 weeks. Actually when we resume, because I'm sure the calendar says we are resuming on September 21st, but I want to believe by that time it should be ready.
Very well. The next is a request by the Honorable Washiali. Ben Jomo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing regarding dangers posed by open quarries abandoned by contractors in Mumias East constituency and other parts of the country. Honorable Speaker, quarrying is a very important activity in our country, as it helps in the development of infrastructure, such as roads in a given area. In the recent past, there have been growing concerns in the manner in which quarrying activities are being undertaken in the country, specifically with regards to open quarries abandoned by contractors after completion of projects. Many contractors who are assigned road works in the country have had a tendency of excavating gravel and or marram, thus leaving behind gaping holes that have become dangerous to both human and livestock, especially when they are filled with water. Honorable Speaker, Mumias East constituency has over 5 big quarries which have turned into death traps. Recently, 2 young people accidentally drowned in the open quarries filled with water and lost their lives. They are the late Rehema Oruko, aged 11, and the late Master Kevin Kanenje, aged 17 years. Honorable Speaker, the government needs to look into this matter with a view of seeking immediate interventions to salvage the current situation to avoid more death of humans and livestock. It is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, and Housing on the following. 1, why are the contractors not complying with the law of rehabilitating ground that have been interfered with? 2, when are the gaping holes in Mukware and Indoli areas in Mumias East constituency going to be rehabilitated? 3, when will the families that lost their loved ones going to be compensated by the contractor for not meeting the contractual obligations? 4, and last, what safety measures and regulatory frameworks has the government put in place to ensure that contractors comply with the safe quarry operations? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Kosing, Chair of Transport Committee.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. If it gives us 2 weeks, we will bring the statement, Honorable Speaker. 2 weeks.
Very well. In any event, Honorable Asheli, of course, you have looked at the calendar. You've looked at the calendar, you've seen the calendar of the House. So I believe that is not just ambitious, but it's very good. Next request is by the member for Jomfu, the Honorable Badi Twalib.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to the provincial of Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources regarding the ongoing water provision crisis in Jomvu constituency. Mr. Speaker, since 2018, residents of Bangladesh, Jomvu, Ganahola and Meritini villages in Jomvu constituency have endured months of extreme water shortage that has aggravated following delays by DANAF group contractors who are yet to complete World Bank funded water piping projects in Meritini, Mikindani and Jomvu. Mr. Speaker, despite the noble efforts by well-wishers, such as Asmuk Patel, popularly known as Asu, of Mombasa Cement Company, who is utilizing water boozers to assist desperate residents, private water suppliers have taken advantage of the water shortage to charge exorbitant rates to supply water in various estates. Mr. Speaker, despite the residents conducting numerous peaceful demonstrations, no specific tangible remedial action has been taken. And it is on account of this desperate situation that I seek for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment and Natural Resources on the following, Mr. Speaker. 1, what specific factors have contributed to the drastic water shortage in Jomvu constituency? Number 2, Mr. Speaker, why has DANAF contractors delayed in completing the water piping projects? Number 3, Mr. Speaker, has the presence of water cartels in the area contributed to the water crisis in Jomvu constituency through deliberately obstructing the water piping program? And finally, Mr. Speaker, within what timelines shall the residents of Jomvu constituency gain access to adequate water supply? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kareke Mbuki, how soon do you think you can respond to that? The Honorable Sophia Abdi. Well, your request will be channeled through the office of the Leader of Majority Party. There's nothing out of order on that. No, let's proceed. Let's first of all proceed with this. The next will go for the second time, the request by the Honorable Kimani Ichung'wa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm being directed by the Leader of Majority Emeritus to apologize profusely for coming late. I was in the back channel, Honorable Speaker, when you called me the first time. Therefore, my apologies to the House. And Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 442C, I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations regarding issuance of visas to Kenyans wishing to travel to the People's Republic of China. Honorable Speaker, it is more than a year since many countries closed their borders
to foreign visitors following the COVID-19 outbreak, and thereafter issued new entry requirements and policies. In addition, Mr. Speaker, various countries continue to revise their COVID-19 epidemic prevention and control measures from time to time, including the rules moderating how foreign visitors enter their countries and under what circumstances. Honorable Speaker, for Kenyans wishing to travel to the People's Republic of China, one of the many requirements set is a COVID-19 vaccination through presentation of a vaccination certificate. However, despite fulfilling all the other set requirements, many Kenyans wishing to travel for either business or work-related activities continue to be denied an opportunity to travel to the People's Republic of China on the account of the type of COVID-19 vaccine that they have been vaccinated with locally. Honorable Speaker, according to the World Health Organization, WHO, there are now several COVID-19 vaccines that are in use. At least 13 different vaccines across 4 platforms have been listed and administered since the mass vaccination program commenced in early December 2020 across the world. They include the Pfizer, S111, CoinShield, AstraZeneca, ASD122, Janssen AD26, 2S, and the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson and Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines, Honorable Speaker. It is against this background that I seek for a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations. In the statement, Honorable Speaker, I want the Chairperson to address the following matters. 1, why are Kenyans wishing to travel to the People's Republic of China being denied visas on account of the type of vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine, that they have been vaccinated locally, which are WHO approved with the insistence by the People's Republic of China that they must be vaccinated with Chinese vaccines, Honorable Speaker. 2, why are Kenyans being denied work permits and business visas to the People's Republic of China, disadvantaging them to the benefit of Chinese middlemen who are getting unfettered access into the Kenyan boundaries, Honorable Speaker, and Kenyans have noted, Honorable Speaker, that including factory owners now are setting up shops in Nairobi and in Kenya, Honorable Speaker, to come and merchandise the goods that they manufacture, having cut out the Kenyan businessmen that were trading and importing these goods from China. 3, Honorable Speaker, I'd want to know how many Chinese nationals have visited Kenya on either business or work visas from the advent of the pandemic in March 2020 to date, and what work and what businesses that these Chinese nationals have been permitted to come and conduct in the country. 4, Honorable Speaker, how many Kenyans, in contrast, have been issued with visas, either for business or work visas, from March 2020 to date to visit the People's Republic of China? 5, what is the volume of imports brought in specifically by the Chinese businessmen and middlemen into Kenya vis-a-vis imports by Kenyan nationals since March 2020 to date? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Chair of Defense and Foreign Relations Committee. The Chair of Defense and Foreign Relations has already commenced his recess. The Vice Chair, the Honorable Tongi. What would he be doing in Homa Bay? Well, the request will be channeled through the office of the leader majority to forward to them. The other segment is on responses. Members, we must follow what is, there's a procedure. Let's first, what is this, Honorable Udo? Don't say you ask a question, because we are not yet there.
No. Okay. Honorable Speaker, I raised a matter yesterday. Unfortunately, the chair of the committee on transport was not around, and I can also see the vice chair of finance committee on two issues I've asked. There has been no response since February and July. So I wanted your direction. Now that they're around before, they sneak out before they give me an indication when my answers could be forthcoming. That's why I was just seeking your indulgence, Speaker, because I know they could easily go out.
Vice Chair of Committee on Finance, not now, we are not yet there, but don't sneak out until we finish this segment, then you will respond. The chairman, the Transport Committee is not sneaking out, I know. He is the last one to respond. So, Honorable Dirangwa Yenya, I hope you can, in the meantime, just talk to the Honorable Oudo to remind you what it is that he raised. Or you want to respond right away?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I tender my apology for not being in time in the House when Honorable Oudo, asked this question in the first instance. But I'm pleased to inform him that we are going to respond his question when the House resumes. That, Mr. Speaker, my committee is going to undertake inspection visits to the corporations that make up the Kenya Transport and Logistics Network, that is KRC, Kenya Railways Corporation, Kenya Ports Authority, and the Kenya Pipeline Company under the auspices of ICDC. Mr. Speaker, among the inspection visits will be to the railways, Nanyuki, Nairobi, Maraba, Nyahururu, etc. So I'm pleading with the House to allow us time when this House resumes. I'm also inviting, if Mr. Speaker, you agree, the member also to be in our company when we are making those visits, particularly that part which falls within his constituency, Funyura, that is Maraba Railway section. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Undo.
That's perfectly in order. Suffice to note that Malaba is in Teso North constituency, is not in Funyula, but asked the question, the general cuts across the entire country. Thank you. I'll be waiting for the response when the House resumes on 20th September, year of our Lord 2021.
Very well. First response, the Chairman, Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. You are making two responses. One to a question asked to a statement sought by the Honorable John Mwirigi, and the other one by the Honorable Owen Bayer. The Honorable Owen Bayer is not in the House, is he? No, not was. Anyhow, I mean, you can't tell us somebody was. We're not, there's too much work to be done. That one of the Honorable Owen Bayer, you just lay it on the table. You know,
thank you.
I don't know. This is Honorable Mwinyi. This is a new technique you are introducing. Honorable Haji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise in response to statement by the Member of Parliament for Igembe South, Honorable John Paul Mwirigi, to the Parliamentary Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperative on the issue of Miraa, and the question goes, could the chairperson explain why farmers could not be informed early enough on closure of airspace by federal government of Somalia? Honorable Speaker, The response is that Somalia is a sovereign state that makes its own independent decisions, which they are not obligated to communicate to any other country. In the event of a force majeure or in the event of events that are largely beyond the control of any person to deal with. And therefore, this was an unfortunate situation, and the country, when they want to close their airspace, they do not communicate. On the question of whether there are any plans to compensate farmers for the loss incurred, noting that students are going back to school, and that this has been the parents' main source of income and general livelihood. Honorable Speaker, at the moment, the government may not be in a position to raise funds for Somalia for compensating the Mira farmers for losses incurred following the closure of the airspace. Honorable Speaker, as this happened unexpectedly. However, in future, such unfavorable events can be mitigated against by setting up applicable compensation funds through the guidance and support of the National Treasury. Honorable Speaker, on the question of what measures are in place to open more market access to Mira farmers in the region, particularly the Horn of Africa. Honorable Speaker, the government of Kenya is exploring new markets in Djibouti, Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, Mozambique, and other countries in Africa. Honorable Speaker, the government has opened conversations and it is working closely with Djibouti government to allow Mira export from Kenya to Honorable Speaker, to this end, the Djibouti government is organizing for a visit to Kenya in the month of July, August, Honorable Speaker, to see how Mira is produced and managed before opening the market. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development is also organizing to meet representatives from the public and private sector in the DRC during the planned DRC Expo, which will take place in the month of August 2021. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development, through Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS, is in the process of developing a code of practice for the Mira sector. The standard of procedures of practice include ensuring hygiene is observed in the entire chain from harvesting to packaging, as well as loading into vehicles and aircraft. Honorable Speaker, this will go a long way in enabling the Mira crop access more markets. Honorable Speaker, the Ministry of Industrialization, Trade and Enterprise Development encourages Mira farmers to add value to their perishable raw material. Honorable Speaker, through this, the crop can be processed into Mira juice and sweets, among other products. This will go a long way in reducing post-harvest losses and diversify market segments for Mira products and hence unexplained markets. Honorable Speaker, we are aware the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries and cooperatives established the Mira Task Force Report Implementation Technical Team through Kenya Gazette Notice number 10757 of 15th November 2019. Honorable Speaker, this technical team provides technical guidance and facilitation in the implementation of the Mira reforms and is in the process of reviewing the current regulatory framework for the Mira industry to align it to current and future needs. Honorable Speaker, finally, on the question of could the government explain what led to the suspension of flights, especially cargo flights that Mira farmers rely on, and when are the flights expected to resume? Honorable Speaker, no reasons were given as to why flights were suspended. We are all aware that Somalia has had security issues and diplomatic rows between them and our country, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that was the question as far as the issue of Mira the responses are concerned. Honorable Speaker, the issue of response to statement by Honorable Member, Honorable Owen Bayer to the Parliamentary Department Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperative. Honorable Speaker, any policy measure instituted with regards to manufacturing and value addition of pineapples in Kilifi? This was the question. The ministry's policy on manufacturing and value addition is geared towards the promotion of processing across the country and is based on the country's
just a
potential
minute,
and resource endowment.
Honorable Haji, I told you that one of Honorable Owen Bayer,
yes,
you will just table it here.
Okay, thank you.
So you allow the Honorable John Paul Murigi to raise an issue. Honorable John Paul Murigi.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, first I want to appreciate the response from the chairperson, Trent. Mr. Speaker, the chair has trained and he has brought the provided response, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are some signs of effort which he has achieved, whereby the DRC Congo is involved, Mr. Speaker. And it's good, Mr. Speaker, when the expo will be done or will be conducted this month to involve the farmers of Mira, may also included there, Mr. Speaker. And when the visit of the Djibouti business people, Mr. Speaker, will be visiting this country, also the Mira stakeholders and the farmers, Mr. Speaker, to be involved so that they can be at par with this visit and they can be able to introduce or to lobby for themselves for this market to open, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also it is good for the government of this republic to put the citizens of this country, Mr. Speaker, to clear update when the flights are suspended, not to go to zigzag, Mr. Speaker, or to go in zigzag without informing them that the closure or the flights have been suspended. So it will be good when the farmers are involved or are updated in good time. Also, when doing the budget, it is good to set aside some funds which can be used for the compensation when this product, Mr. Speaker, when this product faces some crisis. In the value addition, Mr. Speaker, case, already we have some farmers, we have 2 companies which are already established, Mr. Speaker, which are processing chewing gums, juice, and even wine for Mira, Mr. Speaker. It is only the government goodwill which is lacking, Mr. Speaker, to make this more, or to make this actualize well in this country, Mr. Speaker. So it is good for this government to have goodwill with the farmers of Mira, Mr. Speaker, so that the market can open and the farmers can benefit. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The next response, 3 responses are by the Chairman, Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works, the Honorable Kosing. But about 3 minutes ago, with regard, the first request is by the Honorable Paris Tobiko, member for Kajiado East, about heavy traffic flow in Kitengela town. But I have seen her walk away. I therefore think she is okay. She is okay. So that one you can table. The other one is by the Honorable Kagogo Bowen, member for Marakwet East. Also absent. Then the next one is by the Honorable John Olagwa Luoch, member for Kisumu West. Also absent. So the Honorable Kosing, you can just table the statements. They will go and read.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I will follow your direction.
Yes.
I'm aware that they are comfortable, Honorable Speaker, and they are happy. They have seen me.
That's very good if they are comfortable.
Yes, they're comfortable. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Maybe you can respond then to the issue that was raised by the Honorable Oudo with regard to questions that he has asked your committee.
Speaker, I've talked to him yesterday, but let me clarify with the Office of the Clerk, Honorable Speaker, because the last time the minister came to respond to questions was on 26th of July. And in this committee, there's nothing that remains behind. Maybe the Office of the Clerk might have forgotten, if any, but I'm not suspecting. So let me clarify with the Office of the Clerk what happened. But the minister came on 26th July to respond to all pending questions that were there from July going down. So if you can allow me to...
So from your records, you don't have any pending question?
Let me clarify with the Office of the Clerk. If you have to give me 1 minute.
Yeah, you can go and clarify, then come and
yes.
Let him go and clarify, Honorable Undo.
Thank you, Speaker.
Honorable Mwadi, Chair of Administration.
Honorable Speaker, I'm rising to seek for your direction because last week when I brought in petitions here, you ordered indeed under the standing orders that those petitions should be discussed. I went ahead, Honorable Speaker, to move a procedural motion in which we sought to have motion to discuss these petitions, and which I moved on 16th of August. You gave direction, Honorable Speaker, that those matters should be discussed yesterday and today. But Honorable Speaker, I've been looking at the order paper, and I think the agenda has not been listed. And so, given that this is the last day of this session, you then give direction on how we'll handle that matter when we reopen or later today, so that I can know and plan my time, Honorable Speaker.
No, it's not possible. When it's not on the order paper, it's not possible for it to be fished from some, wherever it may be. So it only means that we can only deal with them when we resume. But they will be discussed, they will be debated in the manner that we directed. And in any event, since you have already given notice, when we resume, it's just for the motion, the petitions to be listed. So it's not possible for it to be done now. Leader of majority. Yes. What is happening? Honorable Abdul Samad, what is your issue?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for indulging me. Mr. Speaker, and with all due respect to the leadership of this House, Mr. Speaker, last week there was a motion that I had requested, and this motion was on regards to matters on how Kenyans are being affected by the issues of the lockdowns and the restrictions that have been there. Mr. Speaker, of course, needless to say, and I'm saying this with a lot of humility to the leadership of this House. Needless to say, Mr. Speaker, last week we were unable because of a technicality. This week, Mr. Speaker, we have been placed on the order paper at such a time that it might not be feasible for us to reach there. Mr. Speaker, I ask for indulgence under Standing Order number 1. Considering, Mr. Speaker, that the executive has pronounced itself by extending these restrictions further for another 60 days as of yesterday, considering as well, Mr. Speaker, that this House goes on recess from today for another 30 days. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of this country mandates this House, and this House is every single person who is here, nominated and elected, to deliberate and come up with solutions that affect the people of this country. Honorable Speaker, I just wish to state this. The Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, Mr. Speaker, has indicated that courtesy of these lockdowns, the amount of Kenyans who are going without meals now has gone up by more than 4 times. These are figures that are in the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. 5.85 million who are the mamambogas and the bodabodas and the hawkers out there, Mr. Speaker, are the ones that we need to come up with solutions for them. And Mr. Speaker, this motion is just to simply guide and give indication that the third arm of government in this country is seeking an alternative way that is going to be feasible, safer, then instead of these constant lockdowns, Mr. Speaker, 11% of those who are in the SMEs and MMEs, 11% of them have closed down. 20% of businesses have been able to shut down, not because of the disease itself, but the effect that these lockdowns and restrictions have had on Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. So I seek your guidance, and with a lot of humility with the leadership of this House, I wish that we can be in a position to discuss this matter today better than for us to be able to sit back here and say that we want to discuss this at a time when more damage has already been done.
You know, we haven't even gotten to that order. We have not even finished these preliminaries, where the leader majority is supposed to give indication as to what is going to happen when the House resumes. And you have not indicated what your plea is. Honorable Duale, you want to?
Mr. Speaker, without anticipating debate, I want to bring to your attention, Mr. Speaker, last week I brought a statement detailing the number of reports, including consumer index by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And the Committee of Finance is dealing with that matter, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, and that is what Honorable Nasir, with all due respect to him, he's quoting Kenya Bureau of Statistics, Mr. Speaker, the last 8 months from I'm on a point of order. From the last, Mr. Speaker, the last 8 months, Mr. Speaker, they have not brought any, they have not published, they have not submitted to this House. So, Mr. Speaker, and secondly, Mr. Speaker, the agency of that motion, I don't see it. Honorable Nasir's party leader, Mr. Speaker, was yesterday part of the meeting with the president and part of the national dialogue that considered the measures put in place. So, Mr. Speaker, we must get a leadership that speaks with one voice. The Honorable Raila Odinga agreed with my president and party leader on the containment measures. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this House plays a critical role, as he said it, in making sure matters of national importance are discussed. Speaker, this House has passed the budget of 2021-2022 and put serious funding, 34 billion for vaccination and over 12 billion to cushion various sectors of our economy. So, Speaker, it is incumbent upon the various committees of this House, whether it is health, whether it is finance, now to follow on what we have passed. So, Speaker, a motion urging, and we have ruled a number of times even in the 10th Parliament, resolving is of a lower substantive matter than when this House, the NHIF bill, is here. I hope that the Honorable Nasir and many of us sitting here need to, during the recess in our various committees, under your leadership, Speaker, to engage. That we did our matter, we did our bit in the budget-making process, Mr. Speaker. The money is with the National Treasury. The thing that the Health Committee should ask is, when are we receiving? We don't want to receive, Mr. Speaker, these 400,000 donation vaccines from UK. We see the whole country, the ministry, going for a showbiz at the airport. Where is the 34 billion that can cater for close to 15 million Kenyans? The head vaccinated, the elderly, even if we vaccinate 30% of our elderly. So, Mr. Speaker, I think a motion, and Speaker, you need to guide us. Of course, the rearrangement of business is understanding order, is within the purview of the Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, my view is that, Honorable Nasir, you are taking the wrong route. You are not taking SGR. You are not taking Kenya Airways. You are not driving to Mombasa. In fact, you are driving contrary to Mombasa. And we don't want a populist. I mean, Honorable Nasir comes from the minority. They should be checking government 24/7. Now it is 2 years we are with COVID. Relax, Honorable. We have got 2 years with the COVID. You are now telling us that with a motion, the things will change, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is not. It's not. Motion can't work. In fact, I'm waiting for this motion, and I want to oppose it because you failed as a minority to check government. It is your party that should tell government, why are you not vaccinating Kenyans? It is your party that shakes hands. It is your party that participated yesterday in what is going on. And if the way you are going, you are annoying your party leader who is in Homa Bay. And the consequences, because I was in ODM before you, I was a founder member of ODM. In ODM, you don't work like that. You don't go contrary to your party leader. In fact, this motion should not proceed. This motion should not proceed. Mr. Speaker, following yesterday's commitment, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, we should not listen to the charade of an opposition or on a minority that has lost focus. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want Honorable Nasir, the next governor, purportedly, for Mombasa to relax. Mr. Speaker, in 2010, the Kenyans said there shall be majority and there shall be minority. And Mr. Speaker, they are occupying the oversight committees of this House. They are occupying the minority side, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this motion, relax. Mr. Speaker, this motion, and I want to say it, representing the hustlers, this motion, it is a populist, it is a political gimmick to open the country for political rallies. It is too late, Mr. Speaker. We must follow what the government said yesterday. We must vaccinate our people. We must listen to the president. We can't have an opposition that dines with the president in State House and the lieutenants are here telling us of a motion that has no head or tail. Mr. Speaker, this House, in its wisdom, under your leadership, passed 3.1 trillion. Money was allocated, Mr. Speaker, to various sectors. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge you that we can continue, and Mr. Speaker, we follow the order paper. Some of us have prepared for the roads bill. We have prepared for the bill on the CBK, and Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
No,
thank you.
I thought, it is never done that way. It's never done that way. Now, because it is, no, there's no need. You know me. Once I say it is not, it is. Let's go to leader majority, because you
Speaker,
leader majority.
Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44-2A, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 17th of August, 2021, to prioritize business for consideration. Honorable Speaker, as members are aware, we are proceeding on a month-long recess starting tomorrow, in accordance with our calendar. I therefore want to wish members a fruitful and restful recess period. However, as I mentioned yesterday, the House is likely to be recalled for a special sitting to consider any ongoing urgent business, especially with regard to the consideration of nominees for appointment to the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission and the Teacher Service Commission. I urge the respective committees, which are currently undertaking the vetting processes, to conclude their work in good time to ensure the House finalizes the matter within the statutory timelines. Honorable Speaker, the following business has been tentatively scheduled for consideration upon resumption. 1, as the second reading, the Health Laws Amendment Bill of 2021. Number 2, the Social Assistance Repeal Bill 2020. Number 3, the Landlord and Tenant Bill of 2021. At the Committee of the Whole House, 1, the National Hospital Insurance Fund Amendment Bill of 2021. And number 2, the Irrigation Amendment Bill of 2021. Honorable Speaker, as always, I encourage any members with amendments to these bills
to submit them to the office of the clerk in good time for the inclusion when the matters come for consideration, including the directions you gave on the NHIF bill yesterday. Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, 5, and 6, I wish to convey that the Cabinet Secretary for Energy is scheduled to appear before the Departmental Committee on Energy on Wednesday, 25th of August, 2021, to respond to 1, question number 003 of 2021 by the Honorable Kwenya Thuku regarding the status of payment to a contractor, Mr. CP Power East Africa, who undertook the last mile connectivity programs projects in Kinangop constituency. Number 2, question number 199 of 2021 by the Honorable Patrick Kamakau MP regarding the high cost of energy or power in the country compared to the ESC neighbors. Number 3, question number 170 of 2021 by the Honorable Michael Thoya Kingi MP regarding the implementation status of all projects funded through the Rural Electrification Authority in Magarini sub-county from 2017 to date. Number 4, question number 247 of 2021 by the Honorable Michael Mushira, MP, regarding the implementation status of the last mile connectivity programs projects in Oljoro constituency. And lastly, question number 278 of 2021 by the Honorable Martin Owino, MP, regarding the implementation status of electricity connectivity in Tiwa Central constituency through the national grid under the last mile project and the street lights program. Honorable Speaker, the House Business Committee will reconvene on Tuesday, 21st of September, 2021, to reschedule business for the rest of that week. And I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. However, Honorable Speaker, before I sit, now that we are going for recess, I'm aware that we've had by-elections recently. We've had 3 new members in Bonchari, Kiambaa, and Juja constituencies, and they have approached my office and requested that they will need to participate in committees. And pending the formal nomination, because there's a process between the whips and selection committee and approval by the House, which may not take place between now and the time we go to recess. I've consulted with the whips, and we have agreed that I proposed to you for you to use your powers under Standing Orders number 1 to allow the following members to participate during the recess in the following committees. Then we'll do the formal rationalization of that when we resume. The first one is the Honorable Muhammad Ali Lokiru, who is a member within the Energy Committee. There is an intention to shift him to the Education Committee by his party. And so he will participate in the Education and Research Committee during the recess. And number 2, the Honorable Pavel Robert Oyemeke, Bonchari constituency, to participate within the Energy Committee. And number 3, the Honorable George Koimbori Ndungu of Juja constituency, to participate within the Special Funds Accounts Committee. And lastly, the Honorable John Juguna Wanjiku of Kiambaa constituency, to participate within the Committee on Implementation. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I'm sure you will guide the House accordingly in terms of these members.
It is not you. This is why we need to really get some things correct. Even the issue raised by the Honorable Nasir, it was not. He was raising with me. It was not actually with the Honorable Duale. So please don't No, please don't raise your hand up. Honour members, obviously, honour members, you know the process by which members join committees. But a number of those ones whose names have been read out are even absent. No, you see, if you go to Equity, you must go with clean hands. And Equity does not help the indolent. Ask somebody, Honorable Ishoma, about the doctrines of equity. You see, we cannot now, surely, those members, the Honorable Okiru, the Honorable Koimburi, the Honorable Imeke, sure, in fairness, I can see the youthful member for Kiamba is here. Yes. Who is this one? The member for Juja? I can't quite tell them when they with the masks. So they are here, those ones, the ones you are describing. So those ones are here. You see, in fairness, and so that those who are joining the House know the importance of being in the House, I will not make any orders in respect of any of those. I think the issue was about Lokiru being moved from energy into education and research, so as to allow the Honorable Pafelo Imeke to move to sit in the Energy Committee. Both are absent, so I make no directions about that. Because also from standing under 173, the process of nomination, 174, 175, 3, for a member of the House to be a member, to sit in a committee as a member, there has to be approval of the House, understanding under 175 clause 3, subsection 3 rather. Therefore, I will invoke my powers, understanding order number 1, to direct that the Honorable, is it Koimburi, member for Juja, to sit in the Committee on Special Funds. Special Funds, the Honorable Koimburi, and the Honorable Wanjiku to sit in the Committee on Implementation. I have not directed your membership. I have specifically directed that you sit in those committees and you enjoy all the benefits that pertain to such sitting in committees until your issue of approval to sit is finally sanctioned by the House. But for the time being, during the time of the recess, and until such time as the names will have been approved by the House, you have my permission to sit and enjoy all the benefits that appertain to such sitting. Very well. With regard to those others, no direction. Honorable Amalwa, you are under an issue you wanted to raise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank you for that direction, particularly to the committed members of this House. Mr. Speaker, it's true, every member is entitled to a committee, and this matter had been raised, Mr. Speaker, some times back regarding the membership of committees. We have members in this House, Mr. Speaker. Some are in one committee, others are in 2 committees, and we have others in 3, 4, 5 committees, Mr. Speaker. There was a skewed way of allocating members when it comes to committees. And Mr. Speaker, when you raised this matter, it was agreed that this matter is going to be harmonized. And I'm happy that the chair of selection committee is here. And before, as we move for recess, Mr. Speaker, it is important that you give direction. When is this issue going to be harmonized so that each member, in terms of equity principle, can be allocated to the committees, as opposed to others who are having 4, 5, they are not even adding much value because
You can't be in 4 committees, Mr. Speaker, and others are missing or are in 1 committee, Mr. Speaker. I seek your direction. Thank you.
Well, again, you know, that's a matter that needs to be canvassed before the Committee on Selection, chaired by a Leader of Majority, in which Leader of Minority and the whips are also members. But perhaps it's a matter that you could raise when the House, maybe when everybody is around, so that if there is need to audit, if there is need to audit to know who is in how many committees. But the rules are that at least each member sits in a committee. So the rest, I think, are matters that you can canvass in your various caucuses. But if there's a member who is not in a committee, it is now the duty of the Speaker to place that member into whichever committee. That is, if the member is not in any committee. Yeah, all those are committees of the House. And the Honorable Ishungwa is a very active member of Services Committee, Facilities. Let me hear the Honorable Nzengu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, on 5th of August 2020, I sought for a statement from the chairperson.
Which date? Sorry?
5th of August 2020.
2020?
Yes.
Yeah.
I sought for a statement from the chairperson of Committee on Health. And to date, Mr. Speaker, I have not received any response. So I have been wondering, I tried to converse with the chair, but I think she's been overwhelmed by work. So I was just seeking your assistance because this is a very crucial matter. I brought an issue on Kala-Azar, which is a disease that is affecting people in Mwingi North, particularly in Ngomeni Ward and Sekuru Ward. So it is a very important matter, but it has been left unattended to. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I need you to help me to get us a response on this matter. Thank you very much.
Get in touch with the leader of the majority party to remind the chair, because as you can see, the chairperson is not in the chamber. And I'm sure the vice chair, Honorable Joshua Kutuni, is also not here, as you can see. But leader majority look into the matter and if the question was, the statement was sought in August of last year, I think it speaks volumes about what is being done, what's been happening. That should last 1 year down the road. I think the committee should respond immediately, if possible, actually, immediately the House resumes. But leader majority will you liaise with the leader majority so that he knows the nature of the statement that you sought. Leader majority, there's some document. I will rearrange business.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for indulging for this opportunity. Today, these papers which we left out earlier, and members may need to have access to them and internalize them during the recess. And before I lay these papers, Honorable Speaker, let me also allay the fears and correct the record for the House that indeed there is no member who has not been allocated a committee except one member by choice who chose not to participate in committees. But every other member, 348 or 45 are already in committee. 3, you made the direction this afternoon. So at least we are in compliance with the standing orders. Now, Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, August 19, 2021. Legal notice number 168 on water services regulations of 2021 and the explanatory memorandum. Number 2, legal notice number 169 on water harvesting and storage regulations 2021 and the explanatory memorandum. Number 3, legal notice number 170 on water resources regulations 2021 and the explanatory memorandum. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Now we'll move to the next order. Not order number 6, but order number 8.
Order number 8, the Irrigation Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2021, second reading. Question to be put.
Honourable members, I put the question, which is that the Irrigation Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 12 of 2021, be now read a second time. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Honourable members, take note before it is read out that the communication from the leader majority relating to the business when the House resumes also made reference to this bill. So that any member desirous of proposing amendments, you have now sufficient, more than enough time to propose those amendments to that bill. Proceed. Read.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Irrigation Act.
Next order.
Order number 9, motion, approval of nominees to 3 national government constituency development fund committees.
The chairperson, select committee on the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Honorable Munyinyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that pursuant to the provisions of section 43.4.
Sorry, Honorable Munyinyi. You know, the constituencies concerned are Nambale, Sirisia, and Bonchari. And the members from those constituencies are not in the House. Do they ever look at the order paper? Because this order paper was published yesterday. I saw it last evening myself. It was communicated. So everybody is supposed, now, their names, this is just to approve names of people to sit in the CDCs. Now, if they themselves, if the respective members are not themselves present, who else now is going to vouch for the suitability or otherwise of the categories proposed? For instance, who will know that Trofosa Ngobiro is a youth, female youth, and a female woman? For the female youth, now, who is going to vouch for the fact that David Buguswa is a male adult, a male man? And these others, youth in Bonchari, adults, disabled, is it? Now, who will know that if the member for that constituency is not in the chamber? I think their absence is to suggest that this House, what the House will be doing, they don't take it serious. So, the Honorable Munyinyi, I think,
Mr. Speaker, earlier, I saw them in the chamber. I saw Honorable Oluka around. I don't know whether he's within, hovering around. He was. You know, I mean, I'm just confirming, Mr. Speaker, that you can see if they were in the chamber, they would have reason to say they are here. But we do not know. I agree with Mr. Speaker. We do not know. It's only them that can confirm if it's Duale, Aden, is youth or male man. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we go by your guidance on this matter.
Honorable Ishongwa, I hope it's not on this one because this one that we just take it out of the order paper.
Honorable Speaker, I beg your indulgence, Honorable Speaker, because for two reasons, Honorable Speaker. One, the chair of the committee is the one moving that motion, Honorable Speaker, not the respective members. Two, Honorable Speaker, if you remember, post-2015, after the amendment of the NGCDF Act, members of parliament ceased being patrons of NGCDF committees in their respective constituencies. And Honorable Speaker, I see a danger if now as a house we start resolving that we cannot transact business to do with membership of NGCDF in particular constituencies because the particular member who represents that constituency is not in the house. Reason is simple, Honorable Speaker. By the time these names arrive on this floor, they have gone through a very rigorous process that we ourselves put in the NGCDF Act of 2015. They are vetted at the local level, advertised, people apply, they are vetted. By the time they come and they are cleared by the NGCDF board for those names to come here for approval, Honorable Speaker, it means that, for instance, as you're asking, Trifosa Ngobiro Muyodi has been vetted, and someone in that particular constituency of Nambale has ascertained that this is a female youth representative. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to beg your indulgence to allow the chairman to proceed with this motion, Honorable Speaker. Understandably, today being the last day of this session, a number of members, and you see many of these members are from Western Kenya, and I just want to be the devil's advocate because they may have begun their recess.
Now, just end your advocacy for the devil. I thought you advocated for
Honorable
somebody.
Speaker, I said I want to be the devil's advocate in this particular, but the way you frame it, you make me now look like I'm advocating for the real devil. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, Honorable Speaker. I am only trying to be fair to these honorable members who might have traveled in advance to Homa Bay. And you know they are very busy, just like those who are busy in Mombasa, Honorable Speaker. But those of us who represent the Hustler Nation, you know, because we know we represent people, we are always here.
Now, Honorable Ishongwa, so that we don't spend a lot of time, I've already directed that that business be removed from the order paper. But more importantly, I think whether or not members of parliament sit in the CDCs, you know, fortunately, you are addressing somebody who has been a member. And I do know for a fact that every member takes keen interest to know who are the people being nominated or proposed, notwithstanding how rigorous the process of vetting is. If any member is not involved, then they are not doing their work properly. So it's only fair because, you know, honor members, you know, the House can proceed and pass this, and then suddenly the next thing you hear, maybe you passed a name of a person who is not living. So I think it's only fair that the members of the constituencies concerned, I think, should be present to even if they don't know much, but to confirm that indeed those lists are for people that come from their constituencies. So move from there, we move to the next order.
Order number 10, the Kenya Roads Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2021, second reading.
But the chairman had something he wanted to Honorable Kosing.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. And before I do what needs to be done by myself, Honorable Speaker, this is a very weighty bill. It's a very important bill, Honorable Speaker. And I have received requests for further consultation, Honorable Speaker, from very important stakeholders. And Honorable Speaker, we pass laws which, the best laws are the compromise laws, Honorable Speaker, that need to be accepted by the majority of the nation. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, having received very fundamental requests from very high stakeholders, I ask Honorable Speaker that this is my bill, that we step it, And I take, or the committee takes advantage of this recess to do that further conversation. I've also spoken to my leader majority, Honorable Speaker, so that we come after recess with a compromised position of the bill, Honorable Speaker, because it's for the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. I thank you.
No, again, it was not directed at any one of you. You know, I can see the Honorable Mwenyi wants to contribute. There's nothing, and even the Honorable Naika wants to contribute. There's nothing to contribute. The chairman has made a request that he would want to take advantage of the impending recess period to do further consultations with the stakeholders, and because he has received requests from several of them. And I wish to confirm that a number of them have even written to me, and I've forwarded those letters to the chairman, so that as a committee they are able to look through the various issues that have been raised by those that have written to the Speaker, of course in ignorance that the Speaker has no vote. But I have forwarded those communications to the chairman, and I think that's for that reason that the chairman is requesting for the business to be stood down, which request I accede to. And then move to the next order.
Order number 11, the Central Bank of Kenya Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2021, second reading, resumption of debate.
Who was on the floor? The Honorable Ondo, you have a balance of 4 minutes.
Speaker, I think I had made a substantive contribution in respect of the bill, and I would request that it's given to another member who is willing to contribute. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. If I go by the list here, the next speaker is the Honorable Manzo Kitonga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important bill. Mr. Speaker, the Central Bank of Kenya is regulated by the Central Bank Act, and is fairly an old act. And we've had the advantage, Mr. Speaker, of new development in the world, especially in the ICT area. And more important is the digital lending, which has not been part of the law in the past. And now these amendments have been brought to support the digital lending, so that, Mr. Speaker, it can be provided for within the law, because it was already happening, Mr. Speaker, and a lot of transactions going on in and outside the country digitally without a supporting law. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, quite a number of civil suits have been filed where people have been conned, and it turned out to be very difficult for the matters to proceed for lack of basis in law, and that's why this has come. There quite a development in this particular area, including, Mr. Speaker, digital money, which many central banks of the world have rejected, including our own, for lack of a law which could be a medium of transaction, or which could provide a way forward, Mr. Speaker. A lot of that has gone on illegally, and it is therefore, Madam Speaker, important that we be able to have a law which catches up with the developments in the world. And even one of the major things which happened, Madam Speaker, is M-Pesa. And when M-Pesa came, we must really thank President Kibaki and his then Minister for Finance, and also the input put by the late Mishuki that particular time. President Kibaki, having been an economist and having been a Minister for Finance, understood the whole matter very well, and we were the first one in the world, even without a legal infrastructure, to accept M-Pesa. And you can see how it has made a revolution of the economy, although now the law had to follow later, and the limits had to be set and regulations written. And therefore, in this particular bill, it's trying to make sure that digital transactions are able to take place within the law, which in a lot of times are in and out of the country. Databases, Madam Speaker, so that there could be database, so that which will be able to serve the country sufficiently, Madam Speaker. And for that, it is important from the object of the amendment that the Act is now to provide for licensing of digital credit services providers who are not regulated under any other law. And quite a number of them have come up, and they're already happening. Central Bank is actually cracking down some of these, lenders. And a lot of times, Madam Speaker, it is happening on telephone, that there's digital lending on telephone. And a lot of times when there's default, or somebody switches off the phone, or no longer uses the number and is no longer being traced, it really becomes a challenge. One is not able to explain, whether there's a crime which has been committed, and if there is a breach of the Central Bank Act, then what is the remedy? Luckily, this digital lending has been small sums of money to individuals, 5,000 and 1,000, but when you look at the volumes in terms of the country, then it runs into billions, and therefore definitely needs to be regulated. This also includes the forexes. Although they have not been captured in this one, they are captured in different law. And I want to admit that, Madam Speaker, it has been happening without a media, but now this is a law which is going to support that sort of thing. And looking at the future, Madam Speaker, digital money now is a reality. The so-called blockchain technology, the so-called bitcoins, and a lot of people in and outside Kenya have been, cheated through that. The main central banks of the world, like UK and the US, are not yet ready to accept this digital money, and the rest of the world has followed suit. But when it goes to the Chinese, the Chinese money and Chinese technology, they want to come up with a way of making sure the systems cannot be hacked. And if you have digital shilling, or you have digital dollar, or you have digital yuan, then there's a way of safeguarding, and maybe just using your phone. You can be able to transact, and using information technology, you can be able to transact, and mostly they are working on how do you make sure that that system has not been hacked, and you have not lost your money, or you've not been deleted out. And if that happens, this is the future. And although we are amending the Central Bank of Kenya Act now to accommodate digital borrowing, the future is digital money. Although countries have been very conservative, the youths are ahead of us. They have even come up with this technology. They have made presentations. First, when they used to talk of this digital borrowing, it was resisted. Now it has become a reality. As the time progresses on, now we're going to have digital money. It's a reality. The day the dollar will become digital, the day the pound will become digital, the euro, the yuan, and any other currency, then even the Kenyan shilling at some point will be digital. And I'm sure experts, like the leader of majority, will be able to advise this country what to do, because that's where the world is going. So, Madam Speaker, I really want to support this bill. It is very important. It's going to increase the trade in this country. It is going to increase starting of businesses, especially post-COVID economic recoveries. This is very strategic. And I believe a lot of young people who are involved in these sort of setups and who are involved in these sort of transactions are going to gain more, and will be able to have a stronger economy, and transactions will move faster as regulated by the Central Bank. I thank you, Madam Speaker. I support.
Honorable Wanjiku Njuguna. Is he here? He's not in. Honorable Russell Ali.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this bill, which I consider to be a fundamental bill, considering the time and space in which that we live today. Most of the financial transaction today has gone digital, where those who were born during the analog age, where you go to the bank with a booklet, then with a check, all those have been overtaken by time. Madam Speaker, the laws of a country must be progressive to stay with the time or to stay ahead of time. With this particular bill, I think what we are seeing is that the digital money or the digital transaction is the new frontier. Maybe many years ago, we only saw this with the stock exchange. If we look at the International Stock Exchange, the Nairobi Stock Exchange, this is only the place where the digital transaction was taking place. But I think with the rise and with the multiplication of things like M-Pesa, the many transactions that the banks are undertaking on the social media platform has made it necessary that a law is important to be put in place so that the lenders are safeguarded, the borrowers are safeguarded, and also to a large extent, what we are seeing is that today you are told that somebody will get your PIN and they can withdraw money from your account from anywhere in the world. And people say that one of the things that anybody should ever ask you is your PIN. Madam Speaker, today, from the ongoing of the digital transaction and the digital platform, the banks are slowly becoming irrelevant. Sitting in this house, most of the time, we do all our transactions on the digital platform and also on M-Pesa, that you hardly go to the bank, or once you go to the bank, you want that interaction with the manager or your bank to do something bigger than what this platform has already offered. I think there are many advantages that this facility has provided, particularly in terms of time, in terms of efficiency, and in terms of reaching the customer or those who sometimes we as members of this August House call dependents. But also, there is the downside of it. How safe is this particular system? That it is so easy for somebody to draw out money from a system that only a few have the wherewithal. If we followed what happened maybe a year ago, that a group of young computer geeks were sitting somewhere in a rural setting, and they were withdrawing money from even M-Pesa agents. And they were making a lot of money. Madam Speaker, some other advantages of this is that it employs a lot of young people, young graduates, young diploma holders, who can be efficiently employed by SMEs and MSMEs, that once the platform is set, it is only that young person who has the way to go around this to be able to make money for the companies that have employed them. Therefore, I think having this law, it is the right time. It has come at the right time so that we don't go blindly into the future, because this is the future. It is with us. One of the problems before this law has come to be is when you lose money through these platforms, you don't know where to start a complaint. The investigators don't know where to start. Sometimes individuals are taken to court and there's no substantive matters to make that particular person to stand trial in a court of law. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I consider this as a major area of financial transaction in our country, and it is important for the Central Bank of Kenya, the regulator. If the financial system in Kenya fails, I think all of us will point a finger to the Central Bank of Kenya. But having this law coming into place, I think it's important for all of us, honorable members, to support it, such that going into the future, there could be other things which will come up. An important money, the money, digital money, that is out there is the Bitcoin. The Bitcoins, initially people were making a lot of money, but all of a sudden it's as if it has gone down. So many have lost their money. Many have stopped trading in it because there's not much money as it was at the beginning when it was new. So these are new terrains to be navigated by those who are in the financial sector. But there must be laws to regulate it. Without laws, it will be anarchy, because most of the transaction will be on the digital platform. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to support.
Wahungu Wamalwa? I can't see him here. Honorable David Ochieng.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to support this bill which seeks to give the Central Bank of Kenya powers and capacity to manage the fast-growing digital lending industry. Madam Speaker, and your member of Parliament, nowadays when constituents seek for help from you, they'll most likely ask you to send it to another number. They'll use their number and tell you, no, send it to the other number, because the one that you have has a loan, has Fuliza, or whatever they call it. It's so normal. Madam Speaker, in the village where I come from, there are TVs that have been sold to citizens that only work if they make the monthly payments. If they're not made, the TV stops working. There are also power lights, the power lamps, the lamps that only switch on if you've paid the money. All these are forms of digital lending, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the most important thing about digital lending, Madam Speaker, that I believe that the CBK will be able to address through this bill is the requirement for the transparency on terms and conditions that are attached to digital lending. Madam Speaker, everybody has gone headstrong into digital borrowing. Almost everyone is now borrowing from all the platforms that are available in the country. It's easier to access. There are no requirements that you accept some conditions before you access. You just go in, and once you go in one time, and that's it. So conditions keep changing, interests keep changing, penalties keep changing, and you never know. But the guys lending are always, easily making it available for you. So, Madam Speaker, the requirement for transparency by the digital lenders is going to be very important, and giving the CBK the teeth to be able to work out on the transparency regulations is important in ensuring that the digital borrowers are not being taken advantage of, but above all, to also ensure that the lenders are under a short leash so that they don't have to take advantage of Kenyans. Madam Speaker, number 2 is security, as has been spoken about by another member. The security of these platforms for lending. Madam Speaker, having this law passed will give the CBK, the Central Bank of Kenya, the powers to ensure that the technology of the platforms being used to provide these services are strengthened. Madam Speaker, they are augmented, they are made in such a way that they are not easily breachable. And so we are hoping that once this bill goes through, Madam Speaker, the CBK will move very quickly to ensure that they are able to use the platforms available and the laws so that we don't have issues to do with stealing, using this system, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, number 3 is information sharing, Madam Speaker. The country, the government at large, has an interest in ensuring that the country's citizens are not overly indebted. Madam Speaker, in the last few months, indeed few years, the cases of suicide, cases of depression, cases of mental disorder, Madam Speaker, have gone so high up. And most of these cases are associated with their difficult living standards, the incapacity to meet the financial obligations, Madam Speaker. And so being able to share information, ensuring that people are not taking in loans that they cannot repay. Madam Speaker, where I come from again, I've seen institutions running microfinance, lending through the phone, people having their cows being taken away, having their furniture being taken away because they couldn't pay on time. Now, Speaker, the biggest growing industry in Kenya today is the motorcycle industry, the boda industry. You go in, you pay 10,000 shillings, you get out with a piki. Then the rest is supposed to be paid through a platform. Now, Speaker, we've seen people harming themselves because they are not able to pay on time. And so government has interest, and I'm hoping the Central Bank is going to have interest in ensuring that Kenyans don't get so indebted that they run into mental stress. Madam Speaker, there are also requirements, Madam Speaker, that when sharing information, Madam Speaker, the issue about CRBs and any other credit reference sharing platforms that must be regulated so that information about individuals borrowing is not just being out there. An individual borrows money from this platform, not knowing that the information that he's giving out will be shared with another platform, yet the information required in this platform is so much that if shared, it may easily breach our laws as regards information sharing and privacy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to end by saying that we hope the Central Bank of Kenya will also come up with regulations on how to ensure that these lenders have means of recovery that are dignified, that are humane, so that we don't have lenders recovering from Kenyans in a manner that is dehumanizing, in a manner that does not promote the dignity of the individual. Also, Madam Speaker, all these things that we are proposing to do, all the lenders, making loans available, is supposed to make people live dignified lives. And so it can't be that we allow a system of borrowing and lending that makes people live lives in fear of being auctioned, in fear of their property being taken away, because they don't know what the person is going to do next, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with all those many remarks, we hope that the Central Bank of Kenya will step up and ensure that the regulations they make, and which should be done as soon as possible, promote digital lending but go a long way in ensuring that the borrowers are also protected. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
I see Honorable Ndwati here, but he has spoken to the bill, and I don't think he's even in the House. Honorable Mutunga, can you hear? Are you ready?
Maybe you can give me the next time.
Okay, let me give someone else, and
Yes,
then
thank you, Madam Speaker.
we'll get back to you. The Leader of Majority, are you ready?
Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this very important bill, which I was almost debating whether to support the obvious or not. But for the record, it's a very important bill because we're moving into the digital currency. Or we've already moved away from paper money, away from the traditional ways of doing things, moving into the digital. And whatever we do, whether we like it or not, the fact that we have so many digital lenders is an indication of where the world is going. And it will not be too long before the traditional banks as we know them either have to move digital and close shop, and in fact, most of them have actually even started the digital platforms. It will not be long before we start seeing virtual banks. So, but when that happens, and yet we don't have a law, we will end up with this kind of situation that we've been caught in. So it's obviously very clear that since 2007, I believe it was March, when I launched M-Pesa. It revolutionized everything, life in terms of, fintech, in terms of access to financial services, as we know. And I'm looking at that date, because, Honorable Speaker, around about December of 2016, or sometime just before that, when Safaricom, having worked on, you remember the Sambaza program where you bought credit and you could send credit to somebody else, people saw that as a form of currency. And people started selling credit to one another. It became internationalized. So people in Kenya would actually send through the Sambaza platform. You buy credit in here, you send it to somebody in London, they receive it and they cash it. And as a result of that, then they said, why don't we, just, instead of people selling credit to one another, why don't we convert it into a platform where people can send money to one another? And by the time they went to Central Bank, and I was in the Treasury then, Central Bank gave them the runaround. All those suspicions. This is money laundering, this is everything, how do we control this? And I remember them coming to my office, sometimes just around December, and said, we are so frustrated. We have come up with a technology that will help every person anywhere in Kenya to receive money and people to send money, and in a safe way. And to also help on matters to do with security. Because if you remember, it's about the same time, if you're going to Mombasa to clear your vehicle, people will get into a bus, people know you have money. Somewhere along the way, people will be given some samosas, they will dose and lose all their money. So having cash was high risk. So how would we help in terms of people don't have to carry money around? And when I talk to the officials within the central bank, and they raise the same issues. We need legislation, we cannot approve this thing, ABCD, but in the meantime, we're stifling innovation. And I took the risk. And I said, I'll grant you the permission to actually launch this product. Then we'll follow with the regulations. The only thing being the limitation. And if you may remember, perhaps members may not know why for a long time the total amount you could send was $35,000. It was pegged to $500 at the exchange rate of 70. Because $500 is what you could send in all the other platforms, including on the these bureaus, money exchange bureaus. So because of taking that risk to encourage innovation, M-Pesa, we then launched it in March. And the rest is history. It revolutionized money transfer services on an international basis. It has facilitated that people, even us here, from here, we are able to transact and do everything. So when I look at the natural progression of that was obviously, another point I told banks, you know, this new innovation is going to affect the way you do things. A few of them tried to fight it. And you may remember around about 2008, when through some agitation in the House, when I stepped aside from Treasury, the cartels went to my successor, the Honorable, the late John Michuki, and said, this thing was bad. And he almost stopped it until we then gave him the facts, and M-Pesa was saved. But we know what M-Pesa has done to the world, not just to Kenya. So even as we look at all these Equitel, easy loans, the M-Shwaris sprang up from that, the Pesa Pata, Pesa Z2, Uber Pesa, all these digital lending platforms. When I hear, you know, the regulators talking, they talk almost like, making them look like the devil. We look at their, you know, they are squeezing everyone. But the reason they are here is because there's a gap in the market that has not been filled. And what we can do is we now need to look at how do we help them to continue innovating, continue helping in the financial intermediation, and ensuring those who don't have money have, while also not being exploitative, while not being the digital Shylocks. Because I think that's, whether we're talking about Shylock, whether the Shylock is digital or manual, it's a Shylock, it's an exploiter. But digital, we want to make sure that every good person who has money to lend and every person who has money to borrow can do it without risking one another. Because right now, and you may recall, as part of these COVID measures, what happened is central bank did say these digital lenders could not refer defaulters to the credit reference bureaus. And of course, all these borrowers being who they are, they started borrowing from one to pay the other one, because defaulting the other one, because you knew you could not be reported, which now meant an accumulation of debt that was just built on, what we call in accounting terms as kiting. I borrow from A, I pay B, or I borrow from A, because I can't pay, I then borrow from B to pay A, then I borrow from C to pay B. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm just playing around with people's money. But when push comes to shove and everyone comes for their money, the whole system collapses. So we need to have a situation how we help all these people who invest in this to ensure they save their money. And at the same time to ensure they are not overexploiting because of the high risk of lending to high-risk borrowers. And this law will come towards that. And we'll look at tinkering around with it as we go to the committee stage to ensure that it helps innovation to grow, protects the borrowers, protects the investors in this field, and most importantly, that we can move this a step further to help create some intermediation, so that if one person has 100,000 that they don't need, through a platform, they should be able to help it being lent to a few others, and that happens elsewhere. Yeah, it's called peer-to-peer lending. I have 10,000 shillings. 5 people need 2,000. We can meet on our platform without declaring that the person, the owner of the platform, is performing intermediation, which means they need to be registered as a deposit-taking institution. Because they're not taking any deposit. They're just having a platform, just like Uber vehicles. Uber don't own the vehicles. They create a platform where you come with your vehicle, a customer comes, and the two of you meet on the platform, you pay one another, and everyone goes. You know, Amazon doesn't own the goods that it sells. They create a platform, somebody sells, the other one takes, and they facilitate. And it should be the same thing with money. Because as we move, we need to start thinking beyond just what is happening, especially if you have to create even jobs for our youth in technology. So I'm very happy with this bill, and I want us to open our mind to start thinking of it from that perspective, and not just look at, we are giving central bank powers to regulate. And they come with a traditional hammer and tongs to say, we are going to kill anyone who is coming with something we don't believe in, or we don't understand. It was the same thing with Islamic banking. For a long time, nobody wanted to touch it, because people feared it. But I also took the risk, and I brought it to this house, I believe through the budget, the finance bill of 2007 or 2008, and we opened up for 25% of the population of this country who could not enjoy banking services because they were inconsistent with their faith. So what I'm asking for is, even as we go through this, and as the committee engages, and central banks looks into this, and the House comes out with all this, and the law and the regulations, is that we be open to the fact that technologically the world is moving. Who would have thought of driverless cars on the street, right? Right now, that's the norm. You know, it's a vehicle, it's driving itself on the street, and even money should be able to be moving. Yeah, you list it. All these cryptocurrencies and all that. All this is happening, and even some governments are thinking of investing in the cryptocurrencies or coming up with digital currencies. So let's start preparing for the future from that point, even as we regulate these technology providers. As I conclude, I would also want to appeal to the current digital providers. I know it's a high-risk business, and the higher the risk, obviously the higher the costs. If they can work around with all this machine learning, artificial intelligence, all the bits and pieces that in terms of gathering the information, they should be able to profile their customers, not just for themselves, but for the entire market, so that the naughty borrowers can be weeded out. And those who need that rescue to be able to go out for a weekend and pay, or the mama bogas. Madam Speaker, I don't know whether you're aware of these facts, that Mshwari peaks around 3 to 4 in the morning in terms of the demand for the money. Because all these traders who go to Wakulima market, to Marigiti and all that, they borrow the 5,000, they go and buy, they're entitled to that credit for a month. They'll buy, they'll sell for 6,000, they make their 1,000. But because they cannot trust themselves to have that money overnight, because they might apply it to something else, they pay at night. And tomorrow morning, they buy again. Now, of course, it costs them a lot, because they are paying the monthly rate every day, yeah, instead of just once in a month. And I think these are some of the things that we need to start opening up, so that, first of all, we give them comfort that if you don't, once you have borrowed your 5,000 and you made your 1,000 profit in the course of the day, this 5,000, there's a way it can be put safe for you so that your spouse does not demand it, and then you default on the bank loan. Yeah? So these are all the things that we need to do, and I can talk on this topic for a long time. I really enjoy it, but I want to encourage the committee, and I'm here, I'm happy the Vice Chair of Finance is here. We can engage further as we come to the committee stage to see how we fine-tune this bill to make sure it responds to the market and at the same time helps innovation. Madam Speaker, with those words, I support.
What's out of order, Honorable Sabina?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to stand on the standing order number 95, Madam Speaker, and request the mover to reply so that we can be able to move to some other business. Madam Speaker, as you can see, yeah. So, Madam Speaker, you can consider that.
Honorable Sabina, on a point of discretion, we only have 3 members waiting to speak, and I know it's a motion that has to be prosecuted on the floor, but if we could just give these members to speak briefly. Members, you know, any member has a right to rise on 95. So I'm just giving these 3 members, and they all happen to be from Kitui. So just giving a few minutes. Oh, and there's also Honorable Kanyuithia, but you took out your card. So honorable members, you know, I have an option of putting the question on this, or I could also give you members some brief moments to speak, okay? So let's start with the Honorable Mboni Mwalika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving this opportunity to also support the bill. Madam Speaker, digital lending in this country started in 2013, and there are over 20 digital lenders in the country with a total operational fund of 4 billion shillings, which is actually equivalent to a third-tier bank in the country. However, currently there is no legal framework governing digital lending. Although there are very many advantages of digital lending, like easy access to credit by borrowers, because a digital lender just needs a hub which anybody can apply. So basically, you don't need the borrower don't need a collateral to apply for loans. It also facilitates small and micro businesses like Mama Boga. They can be able to get money from the digital lenders and do business. But however, there are several disadvantages of digital lending, like high interest charges and lack of information disclosure, because basically, if you apply for money from digital lending, they don't actually disclose how much they are charging you, and you end up really paying a higher interest rates. Madam Speaker, there's also harassment of customers and their relatives when you borrow. And when you default, and I'm very sure most of us here, you have got a call from digital lenders telling you that your relative have actually borrowed and has defaulted the money. So these are some of the disadvantages. And of course, because there are very many borrowers and there's no information sharing, people tend to borrow from many lenders, and they become high indebted from borrowing. So the regulations which have been, the proposal which have been proposed is to regulate the digital lenders, license them, and really this country can be able to know how many lenders are in the country, and determine capital adequacy, and minimum liquidity required by digital lenders. This to make sure that we don't have jokers in the market. Because as I've said, you just need a hub. Somebody just need a hub and few million shillings and start renting. And that, so these regulations will make sure that the central bank comes up with a liquidity requirement, how much somebody should have before starting renting money. The central bank will be able to also to supervise the digital lenders and suspend and revoke licenses if they misbehave. All these regulations are aimed at information sharing so that the lenders can be able to disclose all the information, not only to customers, but to everybody, even to other lenders, so that you can reduce the number of people who are borrowing from one app to the other. They also aim to protect customers from being overcharged or exploited by the lenders. As I said, the charges are a bit high, and therefore people, you end up paying, for example, if you are charged 30% in a year, that is 360%, which is quite high. These regulations are also supposed to check on money laundering. Madam Speaker, 90% of the money which is being lent out there is controlled by the foreigners. And therefore, if they are not regulated, it's very easy for and money laundering being channeled through them and cleaned in this country. It's also aimed at protecting the lenders. During COVID, the central bank instructed the credit bureau, reference bureaus to remove all the people who were taken there by the lenders for defaulting. So these lenders actually ended up losing a lot of money because people could not pay and they refused to pay. Lastly, Chair, Madam Speaker, CBK should come up with guidelines on how the digital lenders are going to transit from the current position to the regulation when this bill is ascended. Thank you very much. I support.
Now, before I let the other members continue, you know, the Honorable Sabina has moved a motion, and then she has disappeared. Now, you know, I'm obligated, Honorable Makali Muli, you know, to prosecute any motion that is presented before me, but there is no mover. So we will leave it at that, because then whom shall we be responding to? So if she comes back, then I'll put the question. If she doesn't, then she'll have to disappear with her motion. Let's have the Honorable Mutunga Kanyudia. And in that case, members, you can now enjoy your time, the normal time, until
Thank you, Honourable Speaker,
until the mover of 95 is back.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. Honourable Speaker, we all appreciate the benefits we've gotten from the digital transformation that the world has undergone. There's a lot that happens today faster than it ever used to be, and especially in the money world. Honourable Speaker, the current, other than cash business, is key and has helped transactions to traverse the globe. And this has really lessened in terms of the use of time and in terms of also lessening the transaction time. Honourable Speaker, this is really an important important bill that comes at the right time, although I would like to say that it has come when the bus has already taken off. Honourable Speaker, I'm saying that the train has left the station because so much has happened already in the digital world. There's a lot of lending. There are many transactions. There is a lot that happens today. And therefore, in supporting this particular initiative, this particular motion, or this particular bill, I would like the committee to look at how do we shape this legislation to enable the central bank to catch up with what has been happening. Because being the regulator, they need to be way ahead of all the others in terms of managing the entire transaction world in the digital world. So for them to be able to reach there, then it is important for central bank to move with speed and to be able to contain what is already going on. Because, needless to say, there are very many losses that probably we can account for, especially loss of revenue in terms of taxes, the loss of transaction costs that probably may benefit the country, the huge cost that goes to the borrowers, and the many transactions that go by. So this particular bill comes in to create some regulation within the digital lending world, which is really important for us today, because almost everyone does 10 or more transactions daily in the digital world. The licensing and supervision of this licensing is key for us to be able to know who is actually operating in this field and how are they doing it. Are they doing it within the law, or are they overexploiting people? Madam Speaker, the digital lending has been reported to overexploit people in the sense that every transaction is charged like the annual fee, 10% probably per annum. And this is sometimes per day. If you compute that, Madam Speaker, you realize that somebody pays more than 2,400% in a year, assuming that they borrow for 6 days in a week. And this is huge because people lose a lot. So I believe when the committee sits down to look at this bill and come up with a law, they will look at possibilities of ensuring that there is stemming of this excessive exploitation to the borrowers in terms of the interest rates that they pay per transaction. It also gives the central bank powers to license digital lending or to license institutions that are going to be involved in this particular engagement. It further goes to determine, the adequacy of resources, to spell out penalties, among others. So it will basically regulate the entire transaction world, the digital transaction world. So it's key at this particular point in time. The world has gone digital, as we all note, and having gone digital, then we cannot hide our hands in the sand without trying to catch up with the stage stage of development. We need to move with speed to be able to move with the rest of the world. And therefore, this law comes in to empower the central bank to do what it requires to do, to be able to legalize and to be able to sanitize the lending or the transactions within the digital world. It will also curb exploitation to the borrowers and others. It will create transparency in the digital lending industry. Madam Speaker, very many people do not actually know, they are not aware of the extent to which they could be exploited through digital lending. Some of them borrow, but they do not really know. If you look at Mshwari, things like even Fuliza and others, their interest rates are very high. And people will rarely consider that because they do small bits of transactions, use small volumes of transactions, and these small volumes of transactions are normally charged very high cost. But they rarely know that. Even as we move into having this law, Honourable Speaker, I would like to appeal to the committee and those others who will be involved in coming up or finalizing this bill to look at how do we package information for appropriate dissemination. We need to be able to reach the people adequately so that they can be effectively informed how to proceed, how to engage in this borrowing, how to proceed, and how to assess the extent to which they are benefiting from the money they are borrowing. Indeed, there are benefits because most of the money is borrowed for short-term transactions, and in the process, they pay and you may not realize the levels of cost that they normally undergo. The other issue now, Speaker, is the issue of information in terms of the implications that people may get into without realizing. Digital borrowing does not seem to be seriously controlled. It is also not clear to the borrowers the repercussions. Many people have found themselves in the Credit Reference Bureau without knowing that actually they can land in the CRB. And they get to realize a lot later, and they do not even get to know the implications of the CRB issues, only to find themselves trying to borrow, and then they are told, you are listed as at the Credit Reference Bureau. So this information packaging needs to cover the entire scope of transactions that go by, the laid down penalties and the possibilities that people can get through in the event that they find themselves engaging in digital borrowing. The idea of digital borrowing is almost universal. Almost everybody can engage in it, as long as they're able to probably use a phone or probably engage in some of the apps that are already declared for use. And therefore, people go through the borrowing without a lot of consultation, without a lot of controls. They may not know. There may also not be anywhere where they sign the regulations or the conditions for the borrowing. So they find themselves engaging in business whose content is not very clear. And therefore, they find themselves in situations that are difficult without realizing. I have several examples of students who have had to borrow, and they have even had to look for possibilities of even changing their names because they have overborrowed. Now they find themselves in the CRB, and at the end of the day, they find that they cannot continue, even paying that money. And they are permanently changing lines. So we have actually exposed people into a lot of debts without their realization that they are getting into dangerous areas. So it is important for us to make sure that the legislation is sufficiently comprehensively done to enable information flow and to have whoever is an intended borrower or anybody who engages in this particular field to know exactly how they can position themselves, not to find themselves in a longer term problem, but probably be able to benefit for the short term and therefore disengage as it is appropriate and clear their lives so that they do not become some of those who are already condemned under the credit reference bureaus. Madam Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Dr. Makali Mulu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, even as I rise to support this Central Bank of Kenya Amendment Bill, I want really to start by thanking you for using your discretion, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the two honorable members who have just spoken, Honorable Speaker, Dr. Mutunga is a guy, or honorable member, who was actually a PhD in economics. Boni Mwalika has a master's in economics. And yours truly as a PhD in economics. So these are very potential finance ministers, governors of the central bank, and that's why I want to thank you for the discretion, because really, you'll not be surprised with what is happening in the country, Honorable Speaker, to find one of these guys implementing this bill once it's passed by this House. So really, thank you very much. But without much ado, let me go to the main subject of the bill, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, from where I stand, personally, I think this bill should have been presented to this House a long time ago. Because I think a lot has happened in this country, and actually we have exposed Kenyans to dangers relating to digital credit providers. Because this market has not been controlled, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the basic microeconomic course, one of the things you do is you look at is the functions of the central bank. And when you're looking at the function of the central bank, among many, the key one is regulating the market. That's why it's called the bank of the other banks, so that you have some order in the market. And that's why you find, Honorable Speaker, because there has been this gap in terms of legal framework. This sector called digital credit providers sector has actually remained unregulated. And what has that done to our people? Our people have got into a market which has no control, market which have no enough information, and the market where as a result of lack of enough information, Honorable Speaker, then they have ended up paying a lot of money to these providers. Honorable Speaker, I don't know whether we might have experienced this, but what has happened, mostly the grandmothers, I'm sure some of us might have been lucky to have their grandmothers been alive or grandmothers to our children been alive. You realize that most of the grandmothers are not literate, and they would use their grandchildren either to get money withdrawn from the M-Pesa, or even when to want to read anything from the phone, they would ask their grandchildren to look at their phone and do. So what has happened? Most of them have suffered. Their grandchildren have gone to an extent of even going through their phones, and actually they do the police thing in their grandmother's phone. So that when you send your mother money, you find you have sent 5,000, and she tells you, I've already received 3,000. So now you ask your mom, what has happened? Little did she know that it was actually done by police and by the grandchild. And since the grandchildren are many, she might not be able to say who exactly did that. So this has really exposed our people, Honorable Speaker. And that's why, to me, I think it's very important that through this bill, we see a number of things happening, Honorable Speaker. One of them is that the central bank now, through this bill, will be able to license digital credit providers. Through licensing, what it will mean is that, Honorable Speaker, the registration requirements and process will actually go through a process so that we make sure that anybody who registered, Honorable Speaker, has been taken through a process and they have been confirmed that they are not people who are like to call Kenyans. What is the importance of that? The importance of that licensing process is also very good, and I like the way the bill has captured it. The bill is saying, once this becomes an act of parliament, Honorable Speaker, anybody who has been practicing digital lending will only have 6 months to register with the central bank. So that means now the whole market will be controlled, and if anything goes wrong, we can easily know where to go and who to punish. The other important point, Madam Speaker, which to me makes a lot of sense, is the issue of supervising the digital lending, the digital credit providers, that they are supervised. That over time, there's somebody who looks at what they are doing, either quarterly, or semi-annually, or annually, and there's a report prepared for each one of them to know those who are becoming rogue and those who are still behaving in line with this law. And then the other one is also, what I like also, another thing which is important here, is the issue of suspending or revoking the license. So that actually you know very clearly, by the time you start, you know clearly that, Honorable Speaker, if I misbehave, my license can be either suspended or revoked. And on that note, then you must really adhere to the market requirements, Honorable Speaker. And that's why, Honorable Speaker, as we move to the third reading, I've looked at what is proposed in case you don't adhere to the Act. That the only kind of penalty being proposed, Honorable Speaker, is they're saying if that is 3 of the bill, it says, you'll be convicted to imprisonment of a term of not exceeding 3 years, or a fine not exceeding 5 million shillings, or both. Honorable Speaker, I think to me this is quite not good enough. I think as we move to the third reading, Honorable Speaker, there would be need to look at this bill again and see whether we can enhance that section, so that if people commit an offense in line with this Act, then the penalty is actually enhanced. And that will, to some extent, deter people from really taking this bill to the Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the other important thing with this bill is the issue of data protection. You know, Honorable Speaker, this is a problem where data is very important. And as you join some of these platforms, you provide so much data about yourself. And if that data is not protected, Honorable Speaker, it could easily be misused in other areas. And I think really this bill, as we start working on the regulations, there will be need to make sure that the data provided by Kenyans is actually protected. And that data cannot be misused for other bad reasons, including money laundering, Honorable Speaker. And that's why I think really that becomes very important. And at the same time, we'll also be protecting our consumers. You know, the world has become a global village. And you find you're borrowing everywhere, These bitcoins are all over the place. And even as we engage this important sector, because we cannot say it is not important. It's with us, it's going to be with us forever. But the thing is to make sure that the way we conduct business in these platforms, Honorable Speaker, is a way which then doesn't really expose our people, and those are Kenyans. And the other important bit is also the issue of reporting, that this bill will also demand that there is regular reporting of what is happening in the sector. And that is captured as we look at the regulations, Honorable Speaker, that these digital credit providers will also be expected to report on their activities. And I think to me that will be very important, because through that then things like anti-money laundering can be actually be controlled to make sure that we still protect our economy against some of these financial evils. So, Honorable Speaker, really I want to thank the move of this bill, and urge that now that we have the majority leader here, Honorable Kimunya, that this is a bill we need to fast track as a parliament, so that we give Kenyans this law which will really protect our financial sector. And in the long run, Honorable Speaker, we'll have a situation where then people can borrow through this, because even us, there's a lot of convenience, Honorable Speaker, even as you are seated there. You can transact all your business. You can actually transfer money to your account, you can withdraw money from your account, you can send money to somebody you want to send, and really, there's a lot of convenience in this sector. But we really we don't want to expose Kenyans, even as they enjoy that convenience. And the other point, Honorable Speaker, which I think is critical, and this really will need some financial minds to think through, is the issue of the interest. You know, now, to some extent, we have controlled our interest. It's not controlled, but really the way the market is managed, we can predict the interest rates in this country using the central bank. And I think this is a sector which is not controlled. And actually, most of the consumers are being charged prohibitive interest rates. So I think even as we look at this bill, there will be need for people to think seriously about how do we make sure that the interest rate charged to the consumers does not really expose them and make them poor, because so many people are suffering. I like the honorable member was saying, you want to send money to somebody, they will call you, say, we have a burial, please help us. When you want to send the money for burial, they tell you, no, don't send to that number, send to this other number. And you see the inconvenience, because at times you just want to copy the number. Now when they start dictating to you another number, by the time you send to that number, you find you have sent to the wrong person. Then you start now going back to Safaricom to requesting for the money to be returned back to you. So this inconvenience is all because of uncontrolled digital credit providers market. So I think, Honorable Speaker, really to me, I really want to support this.
Honorable Makali Mulu, Doctor, I wish you the best in your pursuit for central bank governorship or finance cabinet secretary for that matter. All the best. Let's have the Honorable Kioni, Jeremiah Kioni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that opportunity. I want to start by saying that I support this Central Bank Amendment Bill. And Madam Speaker, let me start by saying that by and large, the people who are going to benefit from this facility, the digital credit facility, are the people we have in the past. Now, of course, the bracket has grown in different proportion, but they are the people you used to refer to as Juakali. Certainly now everybody benefits from it, but before we used to talk about them in the form of, or in the name of Juakali. And Juakali, Madam Speaker, let me say that studies on this industry started way back in 1970. The first study that was sponsored by World Bank started in 1970. And all through, we have had numerous studies that have come, and our chairs are full of findings and recommendations that can help that sector or that portion of our economy to grow. And they have always come with three things. One thing that we need to make sure that is available to the people at that level, then at the low level or the low cadre of our economy, was access to credit. And once they have credit, then whatever it is that they make, access to that market.
And for them to access the market, of course, they need a place from where they can be able to carry out their businesses. And finally, we also needed to make sure that the quality of the products they produce is such that you and I can be able to buy and use them, or allow them to compete with other products that have been imported from outside the country. So, Madam Speaker, this bill, this amendment bill, I must say it is just like my colleague, Dr. Makali has said, is one of the documents or one of the bills that we should have dealt with at the very beginning of our term, because it addresses the issues that Kenyans elected us to come and solve here. But I must commend the committee led by Wanga, because within a space of about 4 months, we have now the amendment with us. I see that this bill is dated April 2021, 6th April 2021. And we are now in the month of August, and we have a bill that we are looking at. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that if, without doubt in my mind, if we had concentrated on this kind of things from the beginning, and reduced, like the Right Honorable Lyra said when he was addressing the nation from Nakuru the other day, if we concentrated less on political rivalry in this country, or even within our own house, I want to tell you, Madam Speaker, or I believe it myself, that this bill and many others will have found their way, and Kenyans will be benefiting from credit facilities that they can afford. And I want to thank the leader of the majority for finding it important to have this bill with us today. And remembering that even when he was the finance minister, is the same team that introduced the Women Fund, the Youth Fund. The WESO Fund was introduced much later by the Jubilee government. And Madam Speaker, this digital credit facility, looking at only 3 of the institutions that have been involved in it, where data has been corrected, that is, this is what? We have M-Shwari, Equitel, and KCB M-Pesa. Imagining that they have moved over 300 billion shillings within the time that this credit facility has been available, tells you or informs us of how much more would have helped the ordinary Kenyans, those mama bogas and the people who are pushing the horse carts and the rest, or the whatever it is they are pushing at that low level. How we would have changed their lives if we had addressed ourselves to this aspect and ensured that they are not paying the interest rate at 138%. Unbelievable that there are people who are charging others 138%. There is another one charging at 152%. And we have the branch charging at 384%. And I want to say this, Madam Speaker, that for us to help the Kenyans get a meal on their table, it doesn't take many things that we may be talking about. It takes us elected in this House focusing on these as instruments that are already with us, changing them, and the lives of Kenyans will have been changed. And I mean, Madam Speaker, I want to say that if you look at Women Fund, Youth Fund, and WESO Fund, they have a total amount of money that it will be somewhere over 50 billion shillings. If we were to focus on these institutions, focus on the digital lending facilities, give them a framework that helps the ordinary Kenyans, we will be engaged in other issues other than perhaps what has engaged us for quite a while. Madam Speaker, we are talking of 10 million Kenyans. 10 million Kenyans, that is a good almost a quarter or more than a quarter of the population of this country. People who we have wasted their time by politicking here for the last 4 years. If this is what we had focused on, Kenyans will be doing something different. We will have a better economic arrangement in our country, a better economic growth than what we have. And Madam Speaker, I want to say that we must commend this committee. There are, of course, amendments that we would want to bring to the table when this is going forward. But it is also important, even as we start to regulate this facility, it's good to commend those who took it upon themselves and started offering the services, because they allowed us to see what are these other options available, or other facilities that can be used to get credit facility nearer the people. So, Madam Speaker, in short, what I'm saying is that Kenyans have been exploited for a while we commend the institutions that came up with these innovations, and us having been left behind before we could bring this kind of regulations. We are seeing that Kenyans have been exploited, and they are being exploited in more areas than one. And I am urging my colleagues that instead of us engaging in the kind of political rivalry, political competition that we have been having for the last 4 years, it is important for us to focus on this kind of legislative agenda. And if we allow ourselves to do that, it will be easier for us, even as members of parliament, to seek for re-election, because you have done something. But selling empty rhetoric on the floor, using this floor to propagate your own political ideals, and say it has not been useful at all. And I can tell you that even this afternoon, instead of trying to bring one another down like it was happening, it will be better to concentrate on such useful amendments that we have. And I do not want to get into that line, Madam Speaker, but let me say this. For me and others, those of us who come from Mount Kenya region, this is what is music to the ears of those in Mount Kenya. These are the things that will make them listen to what you want to say as a politician. And I want to tell you that it will be very easy to sell, including you, Madam Speaker, if you come looking for votes in Mount Kenya with this kind of a thing. But if you come with other things, it will be impossible, because we listen to money more than anything else. And these issues are only possible if we have clarity of mind, unity in the things that we are doing, and reduce politicking level in this country. And I dare say we reduce the politicking that we have been allowing on the floor of this House. We have had a lot of unnecessary noise from some quarters. But I think a time of reckoning is coming. And those of us who can be able to bring this kind of legislation on the floor have a future. Those others, I wish them luck. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Kioni, you seem to be on a point of information on the Speaker without the permission to give the information. But your point is well made. Let us go to Member for Kitui West, Honorable Nyanze.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me from the onset say that I support the amendment bill, and I note that the principal objective of amending the Central Bank of Kenya Act is actually to allow Central Bank to regulate digital credit service providers and ensure that there is a fair and non-discriminatory marketplace for access to digital money. Regulating the digital market, this will really bring control. It will regulate the market and supervise it. I note that some of these providers, the lenders, actually, if you are asked where M-Shwari was, or where Fuliza was, that is the offices, you will not know where these offices are. So when the Central Bank now regulating and licensing mobile money lenders, this one will give comfort to the customers, to the borrowers, because in case of any problem, they will know where to go. They will know where the offices are, because the Central Bank is supposed to regulate, to license, first of all, by giving the place where the company will be operating from, and also giving the companies memorandum of association. And these companies should also give evidence that the company meets the minimum prescribed capital requirements. And by doing so, it will give assurance to the borrowers that this one is these are valid companies and they can borrow from them. Of interest is that the Central Bank is also regulating the interest rates because before they are licensed, they are supposed to announce the interest rates. And by announcing the interest rates, this we actually ensure that the market is controlled. And this will bring competition in the sense that if you announce your interest rates and the others announce theirs, then there will be a level playing ground whereby the competition will be leveled and actually the interest rates will be lower because the companies are registered and they are known and the interest rates are known, the interest will come down, and therefore the borrowers will have access to easy money, to money where they can borrow easily, do their businesses easily, and at a lower rate. So Central Bank licensing the lenders, this will bring comfort to the customers, and also the lenders will be protected. And in doing so, the country will also be in a position to get good revenue because from the regulation, the registration